by the end of May, they need to be cut off from federal funds until they comply with federal law.
But you can't make it drink.
I think so.
You can
we have to do something. And the thing is that what we have to do as people, you know, the general populace, is make our, well, actually, there's several things we need to do. One is make our representatives put that to the vote to make the law, and we have to make that law. Okay, that's one. Two, Convention of States. I am becoming more enamored of the Convention of States.
Well, I heard the arguments against it, and they just don't hold water. You don't have to worry about it being a runaway convention because all 6 amendments have to be agreed upon in principle. There's still going to be some debate, but there will be agreement. They have to be agreed upon in principle by at least 34 states in order to even have a convention. Then once the convention is had, they go through the debate, vote on the 6 amendments, they pass. And then they have to go back out to the states, and 38 states have to ratify them. There's no way it can get turned into a runaway. Nobody can introduce a new amendment. They all have to be agreed upon in the resolutions when they're filed in the state legislature at a time. And I think these 6 amendments, if you're unfamiliar with them, you need to get the book Alienated Nation and read it. That's all about the Convention of States. And if you want to participate, it's free. It don't cost nothing. Go to COS Action. That's Convention of States Action. COSAction.com. I'll put it in the chat room.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to cover the last item I wanted to cover today. And this is a little bit, it's on a different frequency. Of course, 10 reasons why you should never mess with an empath. Yeah, don't try to hide your intentions around an empath. It simply won't work. No, it doesn't. Not only that, it'll bring more attention to whatever you're trying to hide. Anyway, empaths are extremely powerful people, and I wouldn't recommend that you mess with one. Empaths are excellent at reading body language and the best mind detectives. Empaths are born with the gift. They have the ability to feel others' feelings. Although this is handy when you need someone to talk to, this isn't their primary gift. Empaths are experts on human psychology by second nature. This gives them the ability to be able to tell when someone is faking, lying, or simply not who they said they were. Some nice people have cruel intentions, let's face it. Empaths just have the ability to recognize it. As an empath, the best way to explain this is the knowing just happens. We don't know how, but we know how to read people, we aren't easily fooled. And if you're a cheating type of partner, don't get with an empath. And you'll soon enjoy the taste of your own medicine. Empaths are basically lie detectors. When someone lies, they give off certain subconscious body movements and tics that you must. Common ways to identify the liar is the eye movement and overwhelming intention to convince you. However, if you're an empath, you already know this. You don't know how to explain why you know, you just do. It's the most prominent feeling you'll ever feel in your gut. Don't try to fool it. Empaths feel other people's feelings much more than they would want to. Because of this, they know when you're faking. Don't try to hide your full intentions around an empath. It simply won't work. Empathic people can see right through a conniving disguise. They often don't ever approach it either because they're also aware that you obviously have some kind of mental distortion. You saw that too, okay. They sense jealousy. Empathic people can feel when you're jealous of them. You might expect this to make them feel a bit charismatic, but that would be wrong. Empaths might know that you are jealous of them for whatever reason, and they will often demonstrate humility to make you feel more comfortable. They also sense hatred. One of the most prevalent senses an empath has is for hatred. Hatred is such a negative emotion. It gives off negative energy that's powerful. Empaths are drawn away by this feeling. They aren't hurt over your hatred, but would rather not have their soul affected by your negative energy. They do not lose sleep over any hatred, which often causes people to hate them even more. They're comfortable with who they are, and they expect to be nobody else. They know your prejudices. Empaths will always know when you have a hidden prejudice. If you're discomforted by people with different colored skin, sexual orientation, or personality differences, empaths, will likely lose interest. Empathic people are not interested in people who are shallow or self-absorbed. They know you're not fine. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. No, you're not. Then tell me everything. If you ever had this conversation with a friend, they're more likely than not an empath. Empaths know when you lie, and they also know when you feel bad. Having a friend you can talk to about things is a tremendous help. Take advantage of your friend's healing abilities and do not lie to them. Don't be afraid. They want to help. They can read lackeys like a book. Empaths hate small talk. They hate sucking up even more. Don't falsely compliment an empath to gain their affection. Hate this and they see what you're doing. An empath's most powerful ability is deciphering people's actions and intentions. And I have to interject. I hate suck-ups. I hate it. Don't do it. Oh my God. Stay away from me. Because you make me sick. Okay? I'm serious, man. I used to have that problem when I was in the service. I could have people that try to suck up. Do you know what I did to those troops that would try to suck up to me? I would give them more work. I would load them down with work so bad. Okay, they regretted it. Okay, they never tried to suck up again.
There's a little bit of a random issue. Sometimes empaths are considered people who not only pick up other people's feelings, but they mirror those feelings. They pick up the same anxieties and display them. I think the correct word would be like a betazoid. Like a sensitive, it means you can pick up the truth behind their soul.
Well, actually, I do have to say that they do mirror, and it's a survival mechanism in a lot of cases.
Yeah, you're right.
Because if you see someone who's being angry or prejudiced or something like that, you would mirror their facial expressions so that you fit in with them so that you're not in danger. If you got a psychopath in front of you, you gotta survive that.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I know sensitives, I know empaths, and just being around them, when they're around somebody, or there's somebody in the room who's really being antagonistic, not necessarily saying stuff, they'll pick up on it and they'll become antagonistic. And then you have to say, you know what? Why are you acting that way? I don't know what came over me. And you have to kind of look around the room, and sure enough, you'll find one of those people in the room, and they're picking up on it, and they're reflecting it.
Huh, interesting. So they mimic it.
Yes. It actually out of them.
House? Okay. I don't. Well, since I'm an outsider everywhere I go, I don't have to do that. I get it. I've seen it. I think it's also, if you think about it this way, you've got those psychic vampires, those people who walk into the room and suck all the energy out of it, all the good feelings out of it. Yeah, they sit next to whoever, and it's like you can watch all the energy draining into them. They're like some big black hole there, just taking all the energy. And others will start slouching in the room. You'll see people's faces falling. It's very strange when I see them. Anyway, a couple few more pieces here. They know when you are on the wrong path. If you have an empathic friend that they're warning you about things you've been doing, listen to them. Empaths are so good at predicting self-destruction, it is similar to time travel. They know your subconscious reasoning for acting out, and it isn't worth it. They will tell you that too. When an empath is telling you that you're heading for a dark place, you better seriously reevaluate your intentions. They know when you're trying to be someone you're not. Empaths have the ability to see personal spirit. They appreciate your perks and your flaws. There's nothing more attractive to an empath than someone who is yourself. When you try to put on an act, they will know. Be confident in your own skin and don't try to be someone you're not, especially in front of an empath. They can, next slide. Have you seen that before? When people do that?
No, I haven't.
Have you seen an empath identify somebody like that?
Yes, I have, absolutely.
Okay.
And they're being very political, and they're being the life of the party, and they're blended, they're smiling, they're having a good time. And the whole time they're faking it. Because you see it. It's just like, does anybody else in the room see it? Nope, they don't. only the empath can see it.
But when I see people like that, I keep on expecting that everybody else can see this too. It's like, dude, it's like a big old headline above your head. You're faking it.
I mean, so I don't pick it up so much in the way they look, but I can pick up very slight nuances in voice. And if I can touch them, if I can put my hands on them physically, that's when I get the real picture.
Wow.
I have some kind of energy that transfers with my hands. I've never been able to explain it, but I know I have it, and I wish I could get better at it because it's really powerful.
I get that. I really do. Next one, they can identify exploitation. Remember when you were a kid, you wanted something, so you would butter up your parents to get what you want? Maybe that's a Southern term. So essentially, you're being nice to someone to gain a benefit from them. Don't do this to an empath. They will stop you in your tracks. You're more likely to get what you want by saying it straight up. I have a good for instance. I was one time on duty, or I was at the barracks, and I was active duty, and this
well,
girl,
a funny thing happened on the way to the moon.
Marines,
that's the title of a video that I watched on YouTube.
And
you can see astronauts hanging from wires, proving that astronauts are natural liars. They analyze photos and highlight mistakes with the moon landing missions. They show it was fake. You can see them faking the photos of Earth. They use a round window to fake the curve.
I hate it.
That's suspicious, don't you think?
To me, that's not cute.
Yeah, listen up. I watched another documentary called Astronauts Gone Wild. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin gets a little riled. All he was asked to do was to swear to God that he went to the moon, but he was not. He was faced with a moon landing denier. Had a chance to show that he ain't no liar, but Buzz decided to punch that dude just for asking him to swear if he went to the moon.
Then I have great respect for where his eyes go to work.
So, do you still believe we went to the moon? Do you still believe what they're telling you? Just connect the dots and pretty soon you'll find out what I found out too. But if you question this stuff, you'll be labeled a loon. You'll be called a conspiracy theory fulfillment. But I don't care, man. I'm still gonna make this too, because I know that we didn't go to the moon.
Just trying to be nice.
Isn't that sick?
And how about those moon rocks they gave to museums? And thousands of people did see them. But one museum took a closer look. They soon realized that something's afoot. The rock they were given turned out to be a fake. Just a piece of old wood, not a rock from space. Yeah, when God made the moon, he saw it was good, but apparently made it from petrified wood.
We end this discourse tonight.
Yeah,
bartenders call you baby. I say, yeah,
listen up.
It's Brooks.
In another museum sits an astronaut suit. Take a good look at the tread on the boot. It doesn't match up with the prints on the moon. And y'all still believe what they're telling you? Or how about that phone call that Nixon made to the moon that's 250,000 miles away? When I can't get a signal on my cell phone line, I guess phones were better in '69.
A good time tonight.
Well,
but stay tuned.
Do you still believe we went to the moon? Do you still believe what they're telling you? Just connect the dots and pretty soon you'll find out what I found out too. But if you question this stuff, you'll be labeled a loon. You'll be called a conspiracy theory fulfillment. But I don't care, man. I'm still gonna make this too, because I know that we didn't go
the next
to the moon.
Segment of their journey over there. Okay, they're in grief now. And a good time, a good relaxation.
Yeah, went straight through those Van Allen belts. It wasn't a problem, right? Nothing was felt. But now you see it's a problem and you can't get through. This problem needs to be solved, according to you. Didn't you solve that problem back in '69 and you flew straight through it 5 more times? You wonder why I think it's fake when there are so many hollow mistakes, like the telemetry data that's all gone missing. 13,000 reels, are you kidding? Giant leap for all mankind, but you lost the data and no one can find. Come on, man, are you kidding? Do you still believe we went to the moon? Do you still believe what they're telling you? Just connect the dots and pretty soon you'll find out what I found out too. But if you question this stuff, you'll be labeled a loon. You'll be called a conspiracy theory buffet, but I don't care, man. I'm still gonna make this joke, cause I know that you can't go. No, there's no blast crater from the lunar module. Probably because that thing is just a model. Or the flag that flutters with no atmosphere. Don't you think that's a bit queer? Intersecting shadows means another light source. Do I think it's fake? Yeah, of course. The whole thing was filmed on a Hollywood set. Directed by Kubrick is my best bet. The moon's so cool, we'd love to explore it, but we can't get past low Earth orbit. Do your research, people, I think you'll find. But NASA admits that a bunch of times. Listen.
Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the furthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to. And we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
5,000 here, 5,000 there. I'm talking to a company in California now.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Yeah. Everybody call NHTSA up. Hey, you know what? That's a good idea. Everybody, somebody get this organized and start a campaign. Everybody just keep on calling NHTSA and making them pass the electric truck.
Yeah, better idea. You can write letters to the Federal Register. Anybody can. And address it to the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration and say, stop standing in the way of electric vehicles. We want them. They got to take them. They got to register. It doesn't think.
That's a very good idea. And I think we're at the end of the show. That was off a little bit today. If we are at the end of the show, I want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in. I want everybody to stay safe out there.
It was so cool.
Do what you got to do.
I had a teacher that knew it all.
I love you. I want you to be safe and here tomorrow. And definitely on Wednesday,
side of a ball that spins like a carousel ride. Man, it all sounded crazy to me, but I love learning about gravity. I couldn't wait to tell my dad about the amazing day that I had. He picked me up, I was bursting with pride. He opened up the door and I jumped inside. He smiled at me and said, how was your day? I said, Dad, I was blown away. I learned about this magical thing, but it kind of got my head in the spin. I learned about this Newton guy. When an apple fell on his head, he surmised that there must be a force that's pulling it down. And everything's being sucked to the ground. A force that stinks us all to this ball.
Anyway, guys,
the people, the buildings, the oceans, and all. So it was written in history. Newton had discovered gravity. He just looked at me and said, don't believe in gravity. Don't believe in fantasy. Don't believe, cause a theory's all it is. It's never been proven, but they teach it to the kids.
Of our shaman, teacher, healer, and friend TFR host, William White. William has been our guide throughout this journey, and he wants you to heal.
Well, my dad felt a little bit sad for me when I mentioned that word gravity. He said, have a little independent thought. Question what you've just been taught. I mean, how the hell could a ball that spins make a force so strong that sucks everything in? Yet birds and insects fly unaffected. Gravity must be so selective. Think about it logically, cause that don't make no sense to me. You gotta question all those preachers preach. Question all those teachers teach. You see, gravity is just a bunch of bull. That Newton guy's just a lying fool. These guys like Newton shouldn't be trusted. They're free Masonic lies have been busted. In fact, my boy, it's density, and that's why things fall down, you see. An object always falls to the ground if it's heavier than the air that surrounds. If it's lighter than air, then it'll rise, it'll keep on flowing.
Marine One, he tweeted shortly as he was on his way over there saying that the First Lady was recovering well and that she was in good spirits. And a White House official told us that the president did phone Melania Trump before she underwent that procedure. And then he also spoke with the doctors after everything was finished.
The U.S. has opened its new embassy in Jerusalem today.
Ivanka Trump did the honors of representing her father on scene.
We welcome you officially and for the first time to the Embassy of the United States here in Jerusalem.
That it is considered by the Trump administration the undivided capital of Israel, breaks a tradition of U.S. presidents hoping the city's future could be part of a comprehensive peace proposal between Palestinians and Israelis. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
May the opening of this embassy in this city spread the truth far and wide, and may the truth advance a lasting peace between Israel and all our neighbors.
Bob Costantini, Washington.
Some 50 miles away, Israeli forces killed dozens of Palestinians in bloody clashes at the Gaza border, and the deadliest day there since the 2014 war. The president still has not commented after a White House aide dismissed Senator John McCain last week, saying he was dying anyway. Correspondent Pamela Brown.
Kelly Sadler spoke to Meghan McCain, of course the daughter of John McCain, and said that she would publicly apologize for making this comment. It's been days since the revelation, since the news of her comment came out in the public, and she has still not publicly apologized.
On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 68 points. The S&P 500 gained 2. The Nasdaq also climbed into positive territory, up 8. I'm Ann Cates.
You must unite what has been set asunder.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
Astronauts to the moon.
Ten, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Not to get off track here, but I feel like we're in the Truman Show, and we're in a snow globe, and they just shook it up.
Welcome to reality.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages. You are tuned into your protection from deception right here on truthfrequencyradio.com, and hold on to your seats. You are dialed into the #1 show on TFR on Monday nights between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. Pacific, 9 to midnight Eastern. That show is Jeranism Monday Night Raw, and it starts now. I'm your host, Jeran from Jeranism. Miss is here as well, and we thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. First off, I wanted to say hello out there to everyone in the chat or wherever you may be, upside down in Australia or possibly perpendicular in Mozambique. Thank you for joining us. Also wanted to say hello to all the flat earthers that we met the past 2 weekends. This most recent weekend down in Palmdale at Marie Kerr Park. Netta put on a fantastic meetup. Also want to thank Josh. You were awesome. And thanks for helping put that meetup together. And all of everybody that we met. There's so many good people. It was just amazing. And also wanted to thank Michelle Gentz for putting on the meetup in Sacramento, which was the weekend before, and all the people I met there, and Patrick and Berto Goberto, Enrique, and everyone else that we met. It was a fantastic time, and we really appreciate all your kindness. David J., thank you so much. Todd Holiday, thanks for showing me your photos. And again, Netta, Michelle, and Josh, you guys did an awesome job putting those all together. So meeting over 100 people in this community was certainly awesome. Great people, and just really wanted to say thanks for coming out. It meant a ton. So tonight, a little something different. I have an interview that I did earlier today with Dave Murphy, or Dave Moore, or allegedly Dave, depending on how you want to word it. So an interesting conversation Dave and I had. We, of course, have a different opinion on the Bible for sure. I love Dave. Can't wait to meet him in November at the Flat Earth International Convention in Denver. But you'll see here that we do have a difference of opinion. And I wasn't very confrontational. I love to hear new ideas and people's opinions. And I'll definitely look into Paleo-Hebrew and some more, as I've looked into it before, but I saw too much of like a Kabbalah or an Enochian magic and just didn't continue. But I will definitely look into it some more. So I hope you enjoy the conversation with D. Murphy, 25, or allegedly Dave, and yours truly, Jeran from Jeranism. So please, enjoy. All right, so I am here with Dave Murphy, or D. Murphy 25, or Dave Moore, or allegedly Dave. I don't know what you want to go by nowadays, but he is awesome and has been, a big part of my waking up. Many people might know him from the Macedonian interview that he was on, where he discussed flat Earth, probably better than anyone at the time, really rounding it off and presenting it in a nice packaged way. So, Dave, I'm happy to have you with me. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks very much.
Good.
Glad to be here.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, we don't get to talk often enough. I know you've been on Globebusters a time or two. Great shows. If anybody hasn't heard him on Globebusters, I'll put a link to the show that I think is one of the funniest shows that we've had, or incredible shows. There was a period of time where we were talking about and everything is a, a lot of people say not everything is a conspiracy, but it's like, no, everything is a conspiracy. But we were talking about the Bible, and allegedly Dave started to get into who's behind it all, and he started talking about Satan. And the second he said Satan, there was this huge thunder and lightning that happened behind him. And I mean, I remember that show. Everyone said, oh my goodness, keep going, keep going. So it's one of the memorable shows in the many that I've done. So I'll put a link to that. And actually, since this is pre-recorded, what I should be able to do is I'll go ahead and just input that 5-minute section or so of that Globebusters episode, which was way back in September of 2015, I believe. And I'll let you listen to that little segment right here.
When I was when I was sort of in the conspiracy world, I was looking at all these conspiracies and looking at the pyramid of control, and you can only go so far up the pyramid, and trace it to humans. And when you ask who's at the top of the pyramid, at the time when I was in that mode, the only thing I could say was it had to be something that wasn't necessarily human. But also wasn't affected by time as we know it. And I put it down at the time to some kind of alien or some reptile or whatever. But now, and this is going to be unpopular, now I know it's this being that we've called Satan, and it's real and it's happening right now.
Well, I can't disagree with that. I've often said that, when you look at the level of deceit that's going on around the world and how unbelievably perfectly orchestrated it is, I've always believed that if there was such a being as Satan, that this would be something that, you would attribute to this character of having these abilities, because it's just beyond anything I think any one man or even group of men could conceive of. It just seems to go beyond that.
Yeah, and you've heard me say it a million times, same thing, that
Yep.
I really do think that it wouldn't make sense for humans to plan things so far ahead when you only have a 100-year lifespan. And in order to do what they've done, things seem to be planned a few hundred years, maybe 200 or 300 years in advance. And that's how they always are so far ahead of where we are or where we're at, and seems like certain things are released like at a certain time. There's a lot of things I don't think human beings would have discovered when they did. It just seems like they were let go at that time, like that was the time they wanted it to come out. So I see the same thing.
Has anybody seen the film Contact?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Right. Well, but in that film, there's obviously they get the plans for this machine, the biggest, most expensive machine in history, and there's a general or something that comes up and says, well, what if they send these plans to a budding civilization, and the poor saps build it, and out comes a vegan army? Yeah. Well, that's exactly what's happened.
CERN?
Yes, CERN. But if you step back from that, what you get is, if you think about it, we've had technology for just over 100 years. 100 odd years ago, 2 long lifetimes ago, we were all going around in horse and carts. Yeah. So our technology isn't ours. It was given to us. And again, you can go back into the Bible and find out that, I've got thunder here. You can find out that it's the fallen angels started giving man technology. Taught us how to make weapons, taught us money, gave us money, gave us all these things. So what if all our technology that we think is ours has been given to us sort of piecemeal, until we get to the point where we can build the machine for them? And that's what CERN is, I believe. And the frightening thing is that again, when you look at the Book of Revelations, it actually says that in the last days that a key will be turned, and the bottomless pit. Oh, more thunder!
Unbelievable!
Right on cue, right on cue.
Who are you pissing off there, Dave?
Keep going.
I've got to go quick before I get struck by lightning. A key will be turned, and the bottomless pit will open up, and Apollyon, or Abaddon in Hebrew, will come out, and with all the demons and the fallen angels. Well, guess where CERN is positioned? It's positioned on top of a town which was known as the Temple of Apollyon.
Oh, unbelievable! I didn't know that.
And when tomorrow, and this is, I'm trying not to be alarmist, but tomorrow is when they switch on CERN at the highest energy levels ever, it's ever been at. I think it's 14 trillion electron volts is going to go through that machine, and it's going to, and they say it themselves, it's going to rip a hole in the fabric of space-time and open up a hole into another dimension.
And I remember that show. Everyone said, "Oh my goodness, keep going, keep going." So it's one of the memorable shows in the many that I've done. So I'll put a link to that. That's got to be 2 years old or 2.5 years old at this point. So tell everybody though who you are in case they don't know, and your channel and where they can find you, and kind of what you've been researching recently.
Okay, well, most people know me as Allegedly Dave. I basically started with 9/11 because I was there, and started researching about 4 years later. And I've been researching one topic after another. I think the Most High has been leading me from one topic to the next. It's like, a scavenger hunt. You find one thing and then it leads you to something else, and so on and so on. And my website is allegedlydave.com, and my YouTube channel is dmurphy25. So on there you'll find a whole range of topics. Right now I've moved on from the flat Earth. I don't actively research flat Earth topics, even though I keep my hand in. But I've moved on to human history and the Bible, and languages, which are both extremely fascinating topics.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you say that, because I've also gotten to the point that once you know something inside, and it becomes kind of a nuisance if you're just going about trying to prove that to other people who don't want to hear it. And that's sometimes how I look at the idea of the flat Earth. There's people who are open to it, and I want to be there to be a voice and help them maybe cross that threshold to get past their preconditioning and their cognitive dissonance, but at the same time, to keep repeating yourself over and over again and like banging your head against the wall, it becomes difficult because many people just don't want to hear it. They've been given this truth of the globe Earth, and they're spinning in space, and they just, I hate to say it, but it's like they love the lie. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I see that in every single topic that I've researched, and in every topic. What I basically do is I get to a point where I'm totally convinced, and I learn from that topic and then move on. I think this is a journey, and you can't get stuck in one particular topic. I thought when I found a flat Earth, I thought that was it. That was the final stop. In fact, I called my first video "The Biggest Lie of All." But while I was researching it, I found there's an even bigger lie underneath it, and that was human history in the Bible. So yeah, it doesn't help you to get stuck in any one particular topic.
No, and I think that the powers that be, their favorite tactic is anything of division. And if you do get stuck, you're, like you said, in every topic that you find, you're going to find that opposition, and sometimes you just need to do what feels right for yourself. Like you said, the Most High is leading you. I certainly feel that way in my research sometimes, where I just happen to stumble on things, and one thing clicks and links to another, and sometimes you realize that it's kind of it's of another otherworldly, that you're finding this path, and it's really because you're searching and seeking for the truth. And sometimes it will reveal itself to you as long as you are actively and openly searching for it, and you have that true desire for the truth. And I've seen that in you. I just mentioned to you when we were offline here that I've seen now that your son as well has started his own channel with Red Flag Media, which I think is amazing because, again, it's somebody else who's looked at the world, recognized it for what it is, and done his job in stepping forward to say, I'm going to speak out against deception and lies and promote and push the truth. And it's a journey for us all, and happy he's joining us. So I bet you are too.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the funny thing about it is that when he was 11, we kind of got into the TV series Lost. Okay. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. So I used to let him stay up to watch Lost, and then we'd spend about 15, 20 minutes, chatting over, theories and, what's really going on, what's the polar bear there for, and stuff like that, And so we would have this bonding time, just like working out these theories and stuff. And I realized now that he started Red Flag, this is what we do. We're kind of reenacting that period back when he was 11, but this time with the truth,
Right.
Every time we sit and talk, we end up saying that was a show right there,
Right.
Because we're just bouncing ideas off each other and just, coming up with new sort of twists on things. And, we've kind of forgotten a few, more than we've actually spoken out on these shows, because
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's the same way that Globebusters got started. Really, was just Bob and I, when I first met him, would just have conversations on the phone, and before we knew it, we'd talk for 3 or 4 hours, and so we went through so much, and it was like, man, we got to record these. We got to, we're bouncing things off each other, and we're, and you're right. I've forgotten sometimes. More than I can remember. I mean, I simply will stumble on old notes or stumble on old links, and I use a program called OneNote, and I use it a lot. But it still just reminds me so often where I go and look. I totally forgot I was looking into that. Oh, I remember this. There's so much information out there, and really, I love the idea of being responsible for my own beliefs. That's something that I didn't grow up with. I believed what I was told and believed other people, and always felt kind of uncomfortable in my own skin. And once I found the truth and started looking into it and developing my own beliefs, there's no better feeling in the world than believing what you believe, because you've researched it, you've come to those conclusions, and you learn never to take somebody else's word and just say, well, I believe that, or I believe that. I love to hear everybody's opinion, no matter who it is, because I take in what they say, and then I go research it myself and see if it matches my reality. And if it doesn't, then I, kind of push it aside or kind of put it in my little memory bank. And if it does, then I accept it and move on with a new appreciation or a new view of the truth. And so I know that you've been a big part of that for me as well, and looking into the stuff that you've done on health. And I wanted to bring up to people, if they haven't seen it yet, you did a recent debate. And were you also a speaker at the UK convention?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, I haven't found any
debate
good.
For me was a highlight.
Yeah, I haven't found any good audio quality portions of this. I got to keep looking and find. I don't know if there's a channel where all those are being accumulated. I know everything's kind of everywhere. But why don't you tell people about the debate? And I watched I think it's a condensed version. I really enjoyed it. But tell people how that went and some of the highlights.
Yeah, so at the UK Flat Earth Convention, we actually had a debate with some physicists. Well, basically, two student PhDs. So they've got their degrees, and now they're going for the PhDs. And I think there was one who was a fully fledged the PhD, I think. So yeah, it was quite an exciting time. I think it might be the first time it's been done so far.
I can't think of another. No.
Yeah, so it was 3 of them, and for some reason we had 4 of us on the other side, and we stopped them a few times. Literally, we had them stumped. They sat there with holding the microphone, looking at each other, and that was it. They had nothing to say, including one bit where one of them mentioned LIGO,
right,
which is the laser interferometry gravitational, I don't know, something
observatory
object.
Or
I don't know.
Yeah,
observatory. That's it. And they mentioned that, and that was like a little light bulb went on in my head, and I had something for that one. So yeah, I basically called them on this idea of gravitational waves.
Yeah, and if people don't know what LIGO is, it's these 2 tunnels that they have are 2.5 miles long or something each, and they actually are shooting lasers down to the end of these tunnels, and they've supposedly got the best mirrors ever made that then reflect this beam and come back. And it's kind of like the old interferometer experiment that you've heard before with the waves or the lasers going through, and they're separated, and if the Earth was spinning, then when it's coming back, they're going to have an interference pattern. Well, they actually do this on this 2.5 mile long tunnel, and basically they're looking for this little interference pattern, and if they see it, and it means they actually say if it moved as much as the width of one atom, that they'd be able to see it, which is ridiculous. But go ahead and tell them what you did that just stumped him. It was classic.
Well, it's the legs are like at right angles to each other.
Right.
And yeah, they split a beam and send them up both legs, and then bounce them back and recombine them. And if one of the legs is shorter than the other, then there'll be an interference pattern on the screen. And if they're exactly the same, there's no interference pattern. So the idea is a gravity wave comes along and it will go down one leg and not the other, and supposedly shrink that leg as space itself contracts, and so the beam will take a shorter amount of time to get there, and basically there's an interference pattern. That's the idea. The problem is that Einstein basically said that gravity waves move in space-time, not space. So when space contracts, then time slows down so that the speed of light remains constant. That's the core feature of Einstein's relativity, that the speed of light remains constant. And the physicists basically were starting very tentatively to say that no, I don't think that it's directly one over the other, and time slows down. But that's literally it. If you fix a speed like the speed of light, speed is distance over time. So if you fix fix the speed and change distance, then time has to change if the speed is fixed. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always thought it was so simple. The whole equation that they use, basically, if the speed of light is always the same, they call that big C, right? And so you have big C, and they say, well, if the Earth is traveling the same speed as, or going at the speed of light, and the light's coming at you, that C plus V equals the speed of light, meaning you can't get faster than that. And then if the light is coming the same direction as the Earth is traveling, well, then it would be C minus V also equals C. And from that, then they go into length contraction and a whole bunch of nonsense, when that equation can simply be fixed by putting the number 0 in as V, which is the speed of the Earth. Because if you have C plus 0 equals C, and you have C minus 0 equals C, then you're done. So all you need to do is have the Earth not moving, and all of a sudden the equation is fixed and everything else is done. But of course, we know how science would never allow for that to happen. They're not going to allow for the Earth to be the center, even though observationally that's what they see. They decided to dance off into this la-la land with gravity waves and, like you said, space-time. And have you heard the this whole idea of the Lorentz contraction? Maybe you've heard of the ladder idea, where if you had a ladder traveling near the speed of light and you had a garage and the ladder didn't fit in the garage, it was a little bit too long, but you started to move that ladder at close to the speed of light, that they believe that the length contracts enough that if you could pause time or whatever, that the actual ladder would be able to fit into the garage, that the doors could close and the ladder would fit inside that, which is hilarious, because not only is that a joke, and the idea of contraction of length, but then when you look at relativity, again, you could also put yourself on the ladder and say, if you're traveling on the ladder, then it's the actual garage that's moving and not you, in which case the thing that contracts its length is the garage. So, so the garage, which started out too small to hold the ladder, then shrinks in size and is even smaller to hold the ladder. It's just theoretical bullshit,
Yeah, and I think what they did was, again, and I think I said this to the physicists, don't try and blind us with bullshit. Yeah?
Right.
That's what they did. They put all these equations out. They pushed this guy Einstein out as the smartest guy alive, and nobody would, nobody wanted to argue with that. So, and nobody understood all the equations. So, okay, he's the smartest guy alive. We just go along with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it all seems to me to be just excuse after excuse to get away from the simple idea that the Earth stands still. Everything from relativity to length contraction, like we said, with gravity waves, all of it is solved. I was shocked the day I found out that the idea of dark matter and dark energy and all these added things that they have theoretically come up with can be taken out of the equation if the Earth is the center. If the Earth is the center and does not move, then everything is actually acting as we would expect. Galaxies moving away from us, and people can believe what they want about what galaxies may be. I don't think there are other star systems or anything like that. But basically what we're seeing when we look out is things moving away from us, and that would lead you to the conclusion that, well, you could either say that we are the center, or you could say that we live on a balloon and the balloon is expanding. But the problem is, as a scientist, you need to be open to both ideas. Both things are observationally correct or true, and you need to build from there. Well, what they did is they simply dismissed one. I always go back to the quote by Edwin Hubble, who says, to stay away from the absolute or of the unique position, we need to come up with this spatial curvature.
Tell me about the waters of your homeland, Marty.
It is well known that the key to escaping the matrix is purifying your consciousness. But our consciousness is bombarded daily with chemicals in the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the water we drink. This is why we are proud to bring you TFRwater.com, where you can get the Alexa Pure water filtration system. Unlike typical water filters, the Alexa Pure comes standard in stainless steel to keep your water free of BPA and dangerous chemicals found in plastic. This revolutionary water filtration system removes 99.999% of all contaminants, including fluoride, a dangerous neurotoxin added to drinking water, which was first used in Russian gulags to keep prisoners docile. This is standard without the need for expensive add-ons. The Alexa Pure retails for $199, but you can get $50 off by going to tfrwater.com now. Supplies are limited. 4 per person, please.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Jeran, retired. In early 2012, I was facing a laundry list of chronic health conditions that my physician was telling me were incurable. I knew there had to be a better way, and I learned how I could reverse every one of my ailments with science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. In just a few months, I was able to reverse high blood pressure, gastric reflux, sleep apnea, arthritis, degenerative disc disease, heart arrhythmia, AFib, and many more. And I've lost over 70 pounds and kept it off. Now I'm hosting a radio program that's dedicated to helping my listeners do the same. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're sick of being used as an ATM by your doctor, then you'll want to tune into the Your DIY Health radio program here on Truth Frequency Radio every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern and 6 to 8 a.m. Pacific.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
You could either say that we are the center, or you could say that we live on a balloon and the balloon is expanding. But the problem is, as a scientist, you need to be open to both ideas. Both things are observationally correct or true, and you need to build from there. Well, what they did is they simply dismissed one. I always go back to the quote by Edwin Hubble, who says, to stay away from the absolute horror of a unique position, we need to come up with this spatial curvature. Basically, this is what science had become, is a avoidance of anything that would lead them down the path that might make us important, might make life meaningful, might make you responsible for your actions here. And so, that's going to lead us into a discussion about the Bible, because it really seems like as well that science has been an attack on the Bible idea of the earth from day one. If you look at just the things that the Bible says, that science came out and said the opposite. The Bible says Earth was created first and the sun second. So science came and said, no, sun first, Earth second. It's just, it seems like their whole goal is a constant attack on anything related to the church. And I know you would agree with me that I don't want to be part of a world that is run by the Catholic Church either. But the way they went about it may have started out with the right idea, but then they just turned into a church themselves. And now they're the worst religion because they hide it. They try and pass it as fact and evidence-based, when really it's just another religion with holy priests and high priests and dogma and the holy books of Newton and It's really just its own religion now.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It always was meant to be a religion. It's there to convince us that this is a natural world, with regular laws and nothing supernatural. Don't look there. Everything is explainable. There doesn't have to be a creator. It all happened by itself. So yeah, it was always meant to lead us away from the idea of a creator. And now with understanding there's that this is a flat universe. Yeah, this is the universe, and and this is obviously a created place. Then there has to be a creator and an intention.
Do you think that's one of
the purpose?
Yeah, do you think that's one of the most obvious things that anybody can see? That's one of the things for me is and I was, an atheist for a short time, whether you want to call it 6 months or it was about that. When I became disillusioned with the church and religion and I went looking for the truth, there's science over there with their arms wide open saying, we're all about the truth. We don't believe in beliefs. We don't believe in faith. And I ran to it with, so there you are, that I've been looking for you. I can't believe, how did I ever be so blind as to believe in religion when here's science right here in front of me? And within a few months, I saw it to be exactly what it is. I said, this is just another religion. None of these people have any idea why they believe what they believe. They're simply repeating things. And then I saw it to be the sinister case that it is. And then when I looked at the world and I said, there is no more obvious thing to me than this is a created place. And I said, remove everything else that religion has taught me. Remove the idea of the Christian God. Remove the idea of Jehovah. Remove the idea of Allah. And come to your own conclusions. And that was the biggest eye-opener for me, to realize that it doesn't matter that man has done a poor job of explaining who the creator is. The fact that the place that we're at is created is the most obvious truth, I think, that anybody can see. I think anybody and everybody should see it in everything that they look at.
Yeah. With me, I was an atheist for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
I rejected any religion back when I was 13 because up until I was 13, I was into Marvel comics for one thing, and Marvel comics led me into the Greek mythologies. So the Greek gods and then the Norse gods and the Roman gods and all that, and I found them quite cool. All these myths. I thought they were quite amazing. So when I sort of started at school and we had religious education, then I was expecting to hear about these all these gods, and then sort of finding out that well, actually there's like gods everywhere,
Right.
And so I actually started looking into them, by myself, and came to the conclusion that they were all control systems, and so I didn't want anything to do with any of them, and that stayed with me for 40 years.
And when you looked at science, did you just think of it all as being evidence-based, fact-based, and so you didn't look into it, or were you actually actively researching those topics, or how did you spend those 40 years as far as your belief in science?
Oh, no, well, as you said, science is there with arms open, and, you couple that with science fiction, I was totally hooked.
Right.
I would spend my days at work, which was a technical job. I was a computer programmer. I did things like write 3D graphics engines and stuff like that. So I would spend my days listening to lectures by Richard Feynman and what's the guy Hawking and listening to or trying to understand relativity. That was me. I wanted to be immersed in science. Now when I started waking up, and I wasn't like you. Yeah, you say you kind of knew there was something wrong all this time. I was a good boy. I played the game, and I was doing everything right. I got a house, got a bigger house, and got a good job, and blah blah blah. It was a lie. yeah, that that the Most High and his view of reality was true, and everything in man's world was false.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
it's like men corrupt everything, and that's evident in everything you look at. You just need to look at anything, and you'll see whether it's sports, whether it's religion, whether it's anything that you look at. Men have at some point, because of their egos, because of their power trips, because of their personalities, whatever, they've corrupted it. They've gone and made it about themselves, and it's what's important is their gain. And once you see that, then you need to recognize that as true in everything. And that's why it bothers me so much that all these religions are just another control system, another man controlling another man. And when people don't recognize that, man, it's so sad, because it is everywhere. There's no way to deny that men corrupt everything.
Yeah, I when I got into the into looking at health, I was a believer in the medical system. I was getting very, very, very sick, and everything that the medical system sort of threw at me, it just made me sicker. And I started to notice that. And that's when I started looking for alternatives, and realizing that, you know what, everything that the medical system tells me to do is the wrong thing. And it culminated in me finding how the body actually works. And if a stupid idiot like me from Basildon, just a small town in the middle of nowhere, can figure this out, why can't these doctors figure it out? And the inevitable answer is they do know this stuff. Even if it's a subconscious, they know that they're doing wrong.
Right. And it just goes back to that whole idea of getting into people's minds early. And that's why our school system is set up the way it is, because if you repeat as we tell you, and you believe what we tell you, and you go along with all these theories and exactly the way we tell you that the body works and what it needs, then that's how you get moved up in your position. That's how you become your PhD. That's how you get your doctorate. That's how you get your MD. And then you just have this whole world that the people at the top of everything are the people who went along with the status quo, that went along with the story is exactly how it needs to be. If you want to repeat astrophysicists, you want to repeat out of that book, then you get a PhD. You get to become Neil deGrasse, and we'll promote you and push you as long as you run the company line.
I know, but you know what? As a computer programmer, just an ordinary bloke, I'd want to be a better computer programmer. So I would, look at the books that I was given, and then look at how other people did it, and try a few new things out, and test my own ideas, and come up with new ways of doing it, perhaps. And I can't see how a doctor doesn't do the same thing. If I make a mistake, it's just a program goes funny. That's about it.
Right.
But if a doctor makes a mistake, then people die.
So don't you think that would tend to? Well, I see what you're saying, but I'm wondering if that tends to keep them in line, meaning, because I don't think that, in my opinion at least, that the doctors are out there to kill people, because there is no money in killing people. The money comes from keeping them sick. The money comes from, if somebody has cancer, keeping them kind of holding on, getting medicine, getting more, pills, that's what seems like the money is. I don't think that the doctor's point is to kill you, but they don't. So I kind of look at it and I say that's why they don't. And they don't want to be, there is no glory in, like you said, going out and trying something different, because if you accidentally make a mistake, you're going to kill somebody. So they try and stay maybe on that company line of, this is what I've been taught, like vaccines, right? No doctor wants to go out and say, vaccines aren't good for you. They know what's going to happen to their job. They've seen that vaccines have gotten rid of diseases, even though, people can have their own opinion of that. I certainly don't think that's the case in all areas. But when you look at polio and things like that, maybe they think that's I have to go with this company line, because if I go against it, I could kill people. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I know what you're saying, but I don't think doctors even think that way per se. I think they're doing their job, okay,
making their money,
and they've got this fantasy that they're helping people, and obviously once you're ingrained in this, then if that fantasy gets burst, then and you realise what you're actually doing, your life's got to change drastically,
right?
And people don't want to do that. But at some level, you must know that you've got more and more people coming back to you, getting sicker and sicker. That what you're giving them, what you're telling them to do, isn't helping them. They might come to you with one thing, but they'll come back to you later on with something else, even worse, and then literally they end up on a spiral downwards.
That's a great point. They've got to know that. They've got to know that there's no way you can't see what you're doing is not helping. You can't see that prescribing this medication is just masking symptoms. Your body is screaming to you, there's an issue I need you to fix for me, and you're just masking it with pills. How do they not realize that? You're absolutely right.
And I'm no one special, and I've just started looking into this, and I found out answers. I mean, cancer, for instance, it's a 4-part biological weapon, and the randomness, the seemingly random nature of cancer isn't random at all. If all 4 parts are in place, then you're going to get cancer. If one of those parts isn't in place, then you're not going to get it. As simple as that. So that's why it seems random, and it seems like you can't tell what's going on, and somebody who smokes 5 packs a day won't get cancer, and somebody who smokes 3 a day will. It doesn't seem to make sense. But just by looking at just a bit of research on some of the doctors who did spend some time looking, beyond their immediate job. If you just research them, I found the Dr. John Beard back in 1910, who kind of discovered that cancer cells are exactly the same as the cells in a woman's womb as she starts preparing to for a baby. Yeah, they're exactly the same. They're called trophoblasts. And then you look at Dr. Otto Warburg, who finds out that it's all about oxygen. If the body's pH is too low, I never get that wrong. If the body's pH is too acidic, then the body can't uptake oxygen very well. So the body gets starved of oxygen, and literally, cancer is one of the things that kind of follows. It's a prerequisite to cancer.
Have you looked much into Royal Rife?
I have not too much, but I know the basic story and his machine and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But
just another thing for people to research, because whenever I see a doctor or somebody like that they've kind of pushed down and don't teach you anything about, and that there's information on, there's ton of there's a reason why they don't want you knowing anything about it, why he's just a quack, why they're there's a reason behind all that. If they're not pushing something, sometimes the answers are right there in front of you, because if the mainstream tells you it's ridiculous and it's nonsense, then sometimes you need to look right there.
Right. Yeah. There was another doctor called Ernst T. Krebs who discovered the part of the process was that when you injure yourself, your body pumps estrogen. Whether you're a man or a woman, you get estrogen pumped to the site of the injury, and for some strange reason, when the body's acidic and there's some other condition, the estrogen actually stimulates stem cells to act like trophoblasts, and that's what cancer is. So for a long time, I didn't know what that missing piece was, and then I remember listening to an old podcast of mine where I had Dr. Bruce Lipton talking on it. So I was listening to what he was saying, and I actually listened to what he was saying. At the time, I don't think I was listening to him. And he said, while we're in this bathed in this electromagnetic soup, yeah, it doesn't actually harm us until we get stressed. And then once we get stressed, then this electromagnetic soup basically alters estrogen.
Wow.
So that was the missing piece. So if your body is acidic and you injure yourself while you're in this electromagnetic soup, and you're stressed, then the estrogen starts to act oddly and basically stimulates stem cells to act like they're in the womb and kind of multiply out of control. And the body sort of responds by covering those out of control cells with a jacket of healthy cells, and that's a tumor.
Okay, I know. And didn't this guy have his dad was also a doctor? Am I thinking of the same guy?
Dr. Bruce Lipton?
No, Krebs. I thought Krebs was a doctor. I might have my people mixed up, but I think I know who you're talking about. The one that, like you. So basically, your body can have an acid problem, and then when that happens and you're injured, then that's what's causing the cancer.
Yes, you're injured. And you've got to be stressed as well. So the body pumps estrogen to the site, right, as part of the normal healing process. Okay, but if you're stressed, the electromagnetic soup that we're in, Wi-Fi and all those smart meters and stuff, then if you're stressed, the stress hormones basically interact with this electromagnetic radiation and alters the estrogen. And it stimulates the stem cells to act like they're in the womb. So without every part of that in place, so if you're not the type to get stressed, you can get injured and do something and be acidic and be whatever. You won't get cancer.
And that's why they want you. And that's why they want you stressed. They want you worrying about, how am I going to pay rent? What do I do this month? What am I going to do here? This is going on with my children. I got to get here at this time. Yep, they want you because when you're stressed, then you're opening yourself up for all that harm. Yes, so that's why, in America, 1 in 2 people are going to get cancer. 1 in 3 in the UK. And again, it goes back to me saying before that when you start believing things for yourself, it removes an element of stress that you never knew was there. At least that's my opinion. When I believed what others told me, I always felt uncomfortable. I was always stressed. I was always kind of cynical and I felt agitated. And really removing that and telling my wife and I let's start over. Let's believe only what we can prove to ourselves and build our own. What a freeing release that you don't have that stress anymore because if you believe something, you believe it. And if you don't know how something works, then you're not afraid to say, I don't know that one, Well, it's quite simple, really. Knowledge dispels fear. And if you're a muggle, then you don't know anything about the world and things just happen to you and, you end up being reactive and, you react to things rather than, being proactive, so once you've got knowledge of this world, real knowledge of this world, as most of us in this so-called movement are, we see things happen and we're like, oh, I see what's going on. Right. It's like, if you do watch something like on television or in a film or something, and you see the pyramid with the eye in it. Oh yeah, okay, I know what's going on there. Right. But you don't get the fear. You don't get the automatic fear of the situation because you know what's behind it. Right. These false flag attacks or these things that are meant to pull at the heartstrings of mothers and and that it works so well because I know all they have to do is put some mom on the screen saying that her child died and my mom will break into tears. And it's because they just pull that heartstring. That event didn't need to really happen. They've just learned how to put that person on the screen. And then all across the country or the world, you've got people watching that screen. And that's what the TV has really done is allowed them to, spread their fear, their hate, and their beliefs that they want people to believe, spread it far and wide without those events even taking place. And you're right, that's the exact reason. Keep people stressed.
I imagine that there are people out there who saw Robbie Parker at Sandy Hook and were like really upset because of it, and didn't spot the fact that he was actually, working himself up to, that emotional state, just like any other actor would.
Right. Yeah, they saw it, and they look at it, and if they're a parent, they're going to see it and say, "Oh my goodness, this poor man! I can't imagine if it was my daughter." And they look past everything else, and they fall for the trap. And you're right. Once you recognize that, for a long time I didn't watch the news, and I still don't watch it at all, very much at all. But when I do, you recognize that it no longer affects you like it would have 5 years ago for me, to where you're buying into these things, and you're, you hear some white cop shot some black man, and immediately you have these racism thoughts in your mind or whatever that they're trying to spread. And once you erase that and you see right in front of you what they're trying to do, you're like, man, these guys are just trying to drive a strike between all of humans. They want us, hating each other and pointing fingers at each other and not looking, right above us, where these people are pulling the strings and just controlling humanity like puppets.
Yeah, I just thought actually that in the beginning of my video, The Biggest Lie of All, I showed a little sequence where a man walks into a room, and it looks like an ordinary room, and he sort of looks down at the settee that's in front of him, or the armchair that's in front of him, and he goes towards it, and it's a tiny armchair. Picks it up and puts it on the table, and then he looks at the two cups on the table.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And he walks back, and one of the cups is actually way behind, and it's huge, and there's a picture on the wall which turns out to be taped to the camera. Yeah. So the idea there was that when you first looked at that scene, you were so conditioned to know what a room looked like that you ignored some of the things like strange angles of things, and there was like a black rectangle holding up the armchair, and the cups were different colors, but you ignored all that. You didn't bother seeing that or registering it. But once you've seen that, once you've seen how that room actually was, you can't be fooled by it again.
Right.
And that's exactly what it's like with waking up to these things.
Absolutely. There's so many good examples of that. I mean, one of them, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's an image where there's a cigar stuck into a brick wall. And it's one of those things where somebody shows you the image and they say, "What's wrong with this image?" And you'll look at it for, several minutes and just say, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing wrong with the image. And then when they point out that cigar, you're like, holy smokes. Well, then you can never be fooled by it again. And it just is one of those things that kind of, for me, particularly when I found the flat earth, which was kind of a funny way, but my wife had said, when I said, let's start all over, and I was researching moon landings, and she said, do you think the earth could be flat? And I said, no, you're crazy. Don't be stupid. We're not going that far back. Some things are fundamentally true. And it was about 2 weeks after that for the first time I saw the azimuthal equidistant map. And it took seeing that map and thinking back to what I just told my wife 2 weeks earlier when I said, don't be ridiculous, you're stupid, that we're not, and then looking at that map and understanding that, planes can fly around an earth when it's flat.
Well, it comes with cost, a price too large, as if we're really just born to die. I'd rather let a bit more stay in school.
Like that.
Hi everyone, it's Chris Gio here, founder of Truth Frequency Radio. It is with the deepest sorrow that I have to inform everyone of the passing of our shaman, teacher, healer, and fellow TFR host, William Whitecrow. William has been our guide throughout this journey, and him and Sue became like the parents we never had. We both learned so much from him, and he was on countless radio shows with us over the last 10 years, even hosting his own program, Quantum Quest. Cherie and I also share a very sacred bond with William, as he performed the Native American wedding ceremony for us on December 21st, 2012, which binded us together. As William was the sole provider, we would like to help out the family by covering the funeral expenses. Please visit tfrlive.com/whitecrow and you will be redirected to the GoFundMe page. Or you can click on the banner on our front page. Thank you so much for your love and support.
Melania hospitalized, new embassy. I'm Ann Cates. The First Lady is recovering from surgery. Correspondent Kate Bennett with the official White House statement.
First Lady Melania Trump underwent an embolization procedure to treat a benign kidney condition. The procedure was successful and there were no complications. Mrs. Trump is at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center and will likely remain there for the duration of the week. The First Lady looks forward to a full recovery so she can continue her work on behalf of children everywhere.
The president says the opening of the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem has been a long time coming, despite an outbreak of deadly violence.
President Trump's most recent remarks about the long-brewing conflict is that Israelis and Palestinians will have to decide themselves if they want a two-state solution or a one-state solution. Palestinian Minister of Education Sabri Saidam.
You cannot live with the oppression existing. Time has come for the world to say no to Trump and to say no to the continued ignorance of the rights of the Palestinian people.
Israel's position is that it will come to the bargaining table when Palestinians renounce violence. At the White House, spokesman Raj Shah talked of eventually putting forth a Trump proposal.
The peace plan will be brought forward at the appropriate time. It can be evaluated on its merits.
That's a way of saying when things cool down. Bob Costantini, Washington.
There's still been no public apology after a Trump administration staffer dismissed Senator John McCain, saying he's dying anyway. Deputy White House Press Secretary Raj Shah.
I understand the focus on this issue, but it's going to be dealt with and has been dealt with internally. You know, I was told Kelly Sadler called the McCain family late last week and did apologize. And beyond that, I don't have further comment.
Many Republican lawmakers have condemned the handling of the incident. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained ground, closing up 68 points. The S&P 500 up 2. The Nasdaq up 8. I'm Ann Cates.
Wherever you are, make it Truth Frequency Radio.
Walk like us. They even talk like us. Walk like us. But they are not like us. On the weekday, you can see the signs, you can see the signs. They wear the disguise. Look into the mind's eye. There's nowhere to hide. No stick-covered lies. Whispers from afar.
An Earth when it's flat. That eye-opening kind of a moment just taught me that I can be conditioned a certain way, and it can affect my ability to see anything. When she said that, I immediately thought, because I've flown from San Francisco to the Philippines going east, and I went west, and she flew east from San Francisco to Germany, and I said, we both flown around the world. We know that the Earth has to be round. There's how do planes go around it. But then to see that map and just realize, oh man, my conditioning can completely block. So now, I don't think of anything that way anymore. When anybody tells me anything, I never just dismiss it and say, no, it's ridiculous. It works like this or does this, because I recognize now that our conditioning can shape who we are. And that's the entire way that the globe Earth has been sold, is by putting this into the school books and putting globes in every classroom. We just completely dismissed the entire idea, or at least we didn't recognize that the entire idea is a fantasy. That the whole idea of this spinning Earth and the blackness of space, and that the whole thing, you could never convince somebody at the age of 25, of this nonsense. You have to put it into children's minds and make sure that everybody believes it by the time they come out of 4th grade, because the whole entire idea is preposterous.
Sure. And all it takes is for somebody to actually question it.
Yep.
That's all it takes.
That's why we say research flat earth, because that's all my goal in my videos is. I just want people to look into it. And if they look into it and they come to the conclusion that they live on the spinning ball, then more power to them. Enjoy yourself. I think that you've simply decided to allow other men to think for you, and you want to just believe in numbers and math, even though there's no mathematic equation for my arm or your chest or your legs or what cells are in your legs and how they know to be there. And there's no mathematic equation for anything like that, yet they think the whole world must operate under these geometrical mathematical rules, simply because men tell them that. And there is no proof of any of it. Ask somebody for proof that the sun is 1.3 million times the size of the earth, or that we're flying through space, or we're spinning. There is no proof. It's just it has to be, because that's what their model calls for. And if people want to believe that, I just want people to have that opportunity, like you said, just to look into it, because I never was given that opportunity at least my entire growing up, because I thought that I knew the truth. And once I did look into it, that's when I realized that I was believing in a lie. So I just want people to have that opportunity, and I still think there's billions of people that haven't had that opportunity yet to really question it, because it's just dismissed in mainstream and everywhere else. They want to laugh at it because they don't want you to even look into it.
No, that's why they keep people busy and tired and working most of the hours of their life, basically.
Well, and I've told people before that when I was a store manager for a drugstore, if somebody would have came in and told me, hey, Jeran, the earth is flat, I would tell them, what difference does it make? Well, who cares? Because I had a job, I worked 70 hours a week, and I came home in time to make dinner and sit on the couch and fall asleep, and had to go right back the next day. That was my life. They consumed my life with work and needing to pay bills and needing to get my son to daycare. And so I really wouldn't have cared. And that's it's just more evidence for me of exactly why I was there. That's why they wanted me there, was as long as I was there working those hours, I would have never cared if somebody told me. I said, what difference does that make in my life? Okay, so it's flat, big deal. I still got to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, it doesn't pay the bills, does it?
Right. But once you realize how important it is, and that it's your, in my opinion, you get one shot here, you better make it count. And if you're just believing a lie the whole time, I hate to tell you that I would rather die and at least know the truth or believe the truth, rather than to die knowing I spent my entire life believing what somebody else told me to believe.
Well, it's a bit more than that, though, because what this construct has done is given you things that you have to do. Yeah, you have to live in a house, so you have to get a mortgage, but you need to get a job, but you also need to get a car and get decent clothes, and with the car you got tax and insurance and blah 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 blah. And there's literally, your life ends up getting filled with things that you have to do.
Right.
And you end up on your deathbed, realizing that while you spent your life doing all these things that you have to do, you actually haven't lived.
Right.
So one of the things I've learned is that I gave up working about 5-6 years ago. I gave up money. I gave up chasing money, and it was terrifying. I gave up living in a house. And very terrifying. What am I going to do? How am I going to live? But since I gave up all these things, I've been traveling around the world. I've been doing more things than I could ever have imagined that I could have done, even when I was working. So it's actually amazing that the world works in a very different way than you imagine. And what they've done is they've constructed this construct over the top of it, and said, don't look at that way, look at our way.
Right.
If you want to do something, you jump through these hoops, you go to work, save money, and maybe get this qualification, and jump through that hoop, this hoop, and the other hoop, and maybe you'll get what you want. But there's an easier way, a better way, actually, the natural way of doing things, and it's open to everybody.
Absolutely. I remember when I worked as a store manager, I was making $90,000 a year. working my ass off, and constantly paying bills and pay for this and car registration. And I never had any money to spend. I seemed to be broke at the end of every month too. And when I gave it all up, now I might make $25,000 a year, and I live a better life. I live more free. I have less to do. I have less worries, less cares. And it started with giving it up, getting rid of my bank account. All those things that were just weighing you down before. It's so freeing to get rid of them. And, I encourage everybody to take any step you can today to start to eliminate things from your life that are holding you down. I mean, I would love to get to the point where you're at. I still have not been able to travel so much as I would love to do, and get off the grid completely and not be dependent on, your electric bill and your internet bill. And I thought it was awesome what you told me yesterday when we were trying to come up with a time to get together. And you said that your internet is coming from a nearby building or something. I think that's amazing. That's awesome, because you really are getting off the grid then.
Yeah, I've got this big antenna on the top of my van, and it's got a Chinese receiver on it. I've got an RF amplifier, and I'm hooking into a Wi-Fi signal about half a mile away.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, congratulations. I'm glad that you are out of the system. Where are you living now?
I'm down in the south of England.
Okay.
Actually, on a place called the South Downs. Beautiful countryside. And I'm kind of out in the middle of nowhere, really.
A lot of people awake over there, or just as asleep as here in the States? And
just there are pockets of people awake. Mm-hmm. Where I live, there's nobody awake. It's just me. But I don't really have. Well, I say there's nobody awake. There's a couple of people on this farm that I'm on, and a couple of people. But generally in this area, nobody is. So I don't really talk to too many people around here.
Yeah, we're kind of the same way. It's an uphill battle, but I mean, it is nice to know that so many people are waking up. It may be on a small scale, but I don't know if you've heard that study that was done, and sometimes scientific studies, you can dismiss them right away, but sometimes you look at them and you're like, that's interesting. They did a study talking about how there's a number 10%. When you get 10% of people that truly believe something, that sometimes that's the turnover point to where the rest of the people will accept it. And mm-hmm. I look at that, and at first you might say, it's kind of hard to believe, but then you look at it and you say, well, we talk about this idea of the globe Earth and how did they get everybody to believe it? And if you look at it that way and you say, well, maybe they knew that, and they got this belief into the 10,000 or the 10%, and then when that's your teachers and you put it in the school books, and really quickly it becomes the adopted paradigm, and then you make jokes about the flat Earth, and before you know it, it may have just taken over that easily. And maybe we have a chance at once you get that 10% of people that not just are questioning the globe but have dismissed it. One of the things I want to do is I'm going to start promoting the idea of people getting globes and sending me video of them just smashing them, and kind of spreading that around to where you've got people that are not just saying, I'm questioning the globe, or I'm not sure, but really just smashing the globe in people's faces. And maybe we can get that 10% number, and the rest of them will just kind of follow, because they're going to say, well, how could these 10% believe it? I obviously want people to come to the conclusion themselves, but the more people they see, sometimes it takes that monkey see, monkey do kind of attitude. Whereas if everybody's laughing at it, they laugh at it. But when you see those people that really believe it, that's why I love these conferences and things, because it's making people say, wait a second, these people are going to conferences? These people are flying around the world to show up and speak at events? Well, there must be something behind that. That's what I want. I want people just to look into it, once.
Well, if I don't think it's actually 10%, because if you follow Greg Braden's point of view, he says it's the square root of 1% of a population.
Really?
So yes. So it's not as much as you might think it is.
It's even less than that. Then.
Yeah. One thing that was interesting was directly after the conference, a couple of people a couple of speakers there actually ended up on television very briefly.
The morning show?
Very well. Sorry?
The morning show?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
And they did a poll, and and I think on the morning show they announced the poll, and they said that 6% of people said that the Earth was flat. But we actually followed that poll, and right now, and this is only maybe 2 weeks after, it's at 17%.
Right.
So,
I know I voted in it.
Oh, you did not?
Yeah, you got my percent in there. I haven't seen it lately. I was going to look it up right now. I forgot the name
last time I saw it was 17%.
Yeah, I did see. I think when I voted, it was at 12% or something, and that was after the report just came out of a little while before that only 2/3 of the American millennials believe that the Earth was round, which is hilarious. They're going to hate that number because I certainly think they think it's much more than that. But I don't remember the name of the. Do you remember the name of the morning show that it was on?
Yeah, it was actually this morning.
It was called This Morning?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look it up. Very interesting. And what did you think of Darren Nesbitt? Me personally, I have always liked the guy. I've always liked his research, but recently he's really, in my belief, my personal belief is I want people researching whatever they want, looking into anything that they want, any kind of model that they want, and I don't attack other people's models. And it just seems like he's gone recently into this whole idea of the circle map is wrong, and whether it is or isn't, I think that if people are researching it and haven't found that kind of debunk yet that makes them dismiss it, and I'm really talking about myself, but I don't see a problem with people looking into things, and when you've kind of sheltered people off and said, no, it's this, I just feel like it's too much like science, where science is saying it is the globe, there is no other option, we're not researching the distance of stars, we don't research these things because we already know it. It just kind of feels like that to me. But I thought he did a good job during the debate.
Right. Well, I don't usually like talking about people, being agents and shills and stuff like that.
Right.
But in this case, because I was sitting next to the guy and watching him on television, I saw some red flags.
Yeah.
On television, he said something that no flat earther has ever said. Yeah, he said all astronauts are military.
Right.
Okay. Nobody says that.
Right.
But once he said it, the host, Philip Schofield, basically looked down at his at the piece of paper in front of him, and he said, "No, they're not." And he reeled off the figures of who.
Right. He had the exact number. Yeah. I saw that as well.
Bearing in mind this is a live show, anything could have been said. It just so happened that Philip Schofield had exactly the right answer written down in front of him to something that no flat earther would ever say.
Right.
That looks like a setup to me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I've had some of the same issues myself. One thing is when you go to the Bible for your proofs, but you leave out certain other elements which clearly say something different. I don't like when people push their version of something and they use the evidence in their way, because that's what we don't want people to do. We want people to bring in all the evidence and look at everything and be open to. You have to be open to anything. You have to be open to anything changing your mind. And if I hear somebody say something that I don't agree with, then they're not hurting anybody. That's what they believe in, and I just move on. I say, okay, I'm not going to put that. Doesn't match my reality. I move on. So anytime somebody goes out and is attacking anybody else's belief when it's not their own, I see the signs of religion. I see the signs of science. That's the red flags I get. This is exactly the problem. Is that science said it is this way. There is no other options. Religion says Jesus rose from the dead. He is God's son. There is no other option. That's for me red flags when you got people that aren't open to others just finding their own truth. I read an Eckhart Tolle book where I thought that most of the book I don't agree with, but some of it I do. But one of the big things that he said, which I thought was so well said, is that religion can be used as service to ego or service to self. And I don't look at just religion, but I look at everything. He said that to find the truth, you need to just leave little crumbs for people to find on their path of the truth. But anytime you are not leaving crumbs, but you're telling people you have to go on this road, you have to follow me on this road, then you're using it as a service to self. And if you use it as service to truth, then you will say your beliefs and you will tell people why you believe what you believe, and you just leave that alone. You let it sit there, and if it's right and if it's true, then people will follow and people will use that in their path. But if you're using it to tell people you have to believe what I believe, if you don't believe what I believe, you're going to go to hell, then that's service to self. You're just promoting yourself as I'm right, I'm the only one that's right. So I see that as a huge red flag for me. Anytime somebody is what I see using anything as service to self rather than to the truth, I think it's a big red flag. That's what I see there. So,
right. Well, what I see is I see people who they have the same information that we've got. Yeah, they've got we've got a limited set of information about the shape of the the shape of the Earth.
True.
The actual map and all that. We've all got the same limited set of information.
Right.
Now, if somebody says this map is superior and you're an idiot for believing in the AE map, yeah.
Right.
Well, where's the new information that tells me that this one's more relevant than the other one?
Right.
Yeah. So there's no point in being like that, because you haven't got any more information than we have.
Right.
So it's just an idea. You just say, well, I personally think it's like this, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Or if you do have that new information, then you just need to present it in a presentable way, and everyone's going to see clearly that new information should move everyone in that direction. And if it doesn't, then you need to look at your own information, because
exactly. But to be standing there shouting, "Oh, this is right," and if you're still talking about the AE map, you're an idiot. That's crazy in my estimation.
Me too.
And the other thing that you mentioned, the thing that I noticed about the physicists, and this also happened in the debate that I had with Zen Garcia about Jesus. When we were talking with the physicists, we were talking about the issue with a pressurized system, the Earth, being next to a zero pressure system, the vacuum of space.
Right.
How can a pressurized system sit next to a vacuum, or exist in a vacuum?
Right.
Now, we went backwards and forwards over this idea that, the vacuum could possibly take any air from, a gravity system, because the gravity was so strong, it was keeping the air there. As soon as I got some information that showed that, their own model was saying that, was it 90 tons of atmosphere goes every single day.
Did you look that up right at that time? That was beautiful.
No, actually, somebody in the crowd basically, looked it up on their phone and gave it to me.
That's awesome. It was such perfect timing.
I think there's a tiny clip of me laughing my head off right when I had the phone in my hand laughing. So as soon as I showed that to them, they immediately switched. There's a bit with a guy. Immediately switched to say, yes, it does. The air does leave the Earth.
Right, he's changed
which is what we've been arguing all this time.
Right.
Yes, it does leave the Earth, but the Earth is now creating atmosphere every day.
Yeah, we replace
So that was a flip where they've been arguing against this idea all this time. But once they can't argue it anymore, they flip it to something else.
Right. It's like their whole idea with gravity, the way that they use it, whether they need the Newtonian gravity, then they use that. And then the second you get them on that, then they switch to, well, it's actually Einsteinian. It's this fabric of space-time. You're like, if you get all these answers, if you get all these outs, then you're right. You'll never be defeated. You're just going to keep, like you said, confusing us, right?
Right. And I got the same thing again with this debate with Zen Garcia and friends. We were talking about Isaiah 7:14, where it says, a virgin shall give birth and his name shall be called Emmanuel.
Right.
Okay, they're arguing. No, that's Jesus. That's Jesus. And so I laid out exactly how, no, it's not Jesus. It's talking about King Ahaz and this and that. And I laid it out so there's no argument. And then they say, well, it's a double prophecy.
Yeah. I love those ones when they ever tell me that, oh yeah, all these prophecies came true. I said, you mean in the New Testament, the prophecies came true that were in the Old Testament? And I always use the excuse of, if I read a Stephen King book and he makes a prophecy in chapter 2 and it comes true in chapter 8, that doesn't make it divine. It means that he knew what chapter 2 was when he wrote chapter 8.
Exactly. Yeah. But I'm just saying that the same tactics are being used for all religions, including science.
Absolutely. You're right. Yeah. And they've done I think a lot of that stuff was rewritten in 1600. I think there's a lot of evidence that, this whole idea of these beliefs and this system, and that's why if you go back and read Lucretius and some of this stuff, it's almost as if they're describing the exact way that the things are now, but they wanted it to look like, oh, these people and 2,000 years ago, they were close, but then we went through these dark ages and then we found science again, and these things are, but it's just ridiculous. It seems like it's all designed to make you think that that's the way things happen. Same thing with the Bible, that they want you to think that these were prophecies that came true, that were fulfilled. And I don't know why people just can't see that when the Old Testament says that they'll cast lots for his clothes, that when you write the New Testament and you're writing about Jesus on the cross, that you have to write, oh, and they cast lots for his clothes. That doesn't mean that that actually happened. It means that the people who wrote it knew that they wanted the prophecy fulfilled. It wouldn't be very good.
They had the Old Testament at their fingertips.
Right there. Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't make any sense to put, oh, and they didn't cast lots for his clothes. That's not a very good way to make a religion and make people follow along. You have to have these prophecies fulfilled. But I really wanted to talk to you a lot about your opinion of the Bible and where you've come with that research, because I think it's very interesting, obviously, if not the most interesting subject that there is. And one of the biggest fights for me, or the biggest roadblocks in my path is, and a lot of people have said it before, they commend me for it, but that I could have twice as many subscribers and twice as many followers if I just was Christian. That and luckily people see that because I don't believe it and I speak out against it, mostly because I see, for me at least, the way that they've set up the Bible, at least the New Testament, it has caused the world to be the way that it is. Meaning, if you have docile people who are meek because they think they'll inherit the earth, and you have people who recognize evil and know that they don't have to do much because wars must happen, these things must happen before the end comes, and you just allow evil to reign, and you just sit in your homes and make sure you're a good person and that you're going to heaven and Jesus will come and save us all eventually. I believe that the world is the way it is because of that exact reason. And that bothers people because they say, well, I'm a good person because I'm Christian. And I say, absolutely. My mom believes Jesus rose from the dead, and that's very important to her, and she's a good person because of it. So it is hard to speak out against. But then again, I look at it and say, but my mom also isn't doing much when she hears of wars and rumors of wars because she thinks Jesus is coming. So I'm anxious to hear what your studies have shown you about the Bible and which portions of it that you think are true, or do you think any of it is divine? I guess starting from the very beginning with that.
Okay, well, I'm going to actually step back a little bit and tell you a little bit about the language research I've done, because that will feed in. Sorry? I
said please. Yeah, any way you want to go.
Right, so here's a bit about how I feel like I've been led to certain things, yeah? I had a mushroom trip many years ago, just a week mushroom tea, and I saw some geometric shapes and stuff, but I also saw some strange writing scrolling along the bottom of my vision, like one of those ticker things.
The ayahuasca vine is the non-psychoactive component of the South American healing ceremony, ayahuasca. It is known for its anti-parasitic properties, both physically and spiritually, and is considered the spirit of Aya. The hemp plant has been considered a miracle healer by natives around the world for the powerful non-psychoactive component cannabidol, also known as CBDs. These miracle plants have been reported to aid relief with everything from inflammation, chronic pain, tremors, anxiety, heart palpitations, depression, and much more. For the first time, we have created the perfect synergy of the hemp and ayahuasca plants to bring you a perfect balance of mind, body, and soul. We call this Aya Life, and you can find it at ayalife.com. That's AYA life.com.
Hi folks, Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
Once in a decade, a true story comes along that remembers the future. After 6 Amazon bestsellers, I have completed the epic Birth Trilogy, a true story of Earth. By reading this trilogy, you will be drawn from the origin to the final destiny of Earth in a white-knuckle ride that combines the intrigue and drama of Clancy with the epic scope of Prometheus and Interstellar. You will learn more about the purpose of life, the mystery of death, and the true nature of your soul that you thought possible. The Birth Trilogy is now available on Amazon and Kindle. The audio version is a free bonus when you buy the paperback, so even if you're not a great reader, don't worry about it. I read it for you. Use the Amazon app today and buy the Birth Trilogy, spelled B-E-A-R-T-H, or search for my name. I'm Brooks Agnew.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Scrolling along the bottom of my vision like a, one of those ticker things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was strange writing, but I had the feeling that I should understand what it meant. So I was trying really desperately to hang on to one of the characters so I could see if I could identify it. But when I came out of it, I couldn't remember anything of it. So it wasn't until years and years later that I was watching a YouTube video and I saw the writing, that exact writing, and
hold on, I lost you. Mm-hmm. You roboted for a second. So start over with. You said you saw it. You saw it on a YouTube video.
Yeah, I saw the exact same writing on a YouTube video, and it turned out to be Paleo Hebrew.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it was exactly the right time when I was looking into the Bible, when I was actually reading the Bible, and it just told me, you've got to look at Paleo Hebrew. So I did, and it's been the most amazing, most fascinating journey ever. It's been I can't even describe it. I feel goosebumpy just thinking about it. So I'm gonna give you an example of how Paleo Hebrew works. Okay.
And is that the just so I can make sure I'm on the same page? Is that the language that they say was the original language that has the 26 letters of creation, basically the kind of the basis of the Kabbalah? Am I talking about the same thing?
No, because this has 22 letters.
Oh, 22, okay.
And and this is the original language of mankind.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. And it's the language of creation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to give you an example of how it works.
Okay.
So I'm going to describe a film to you in English, and I want you to guess what the film is.
Okay.
So a man on the autistic spectrum recounts his life to strangers. Any guess?
Forrest Gump?
Okay, so what you did there is when I said those words, you were in the left-hand side of your brain, you were fetching the meanings of the words I was saying, right, and then sort of matching those up to a list of films that you'd watched.
Right.
Okay. And you chose one, and it could have been Rain Man, it could have been A Beautiful Mind, it could have been Forrest Gump. Okay. Right. So I'm going to tell you the same film in Paleo Hebrew. So Paleo Hebrew is made up of pictures. Okay. So each letter is a picture of something. Okay. So I'm going to use emojis or emoticons.
Okay.
Okay. So, man running, a box of chocolates, a shrimp, and a boat.
Okay. That's
So what's
Forrest.
the film?
That's Forrest Gump.
Yes. So, what happened there is that you didn't have to think about the film. Okay. When you kind of saw those pictures in your mind, all of a sudden, it was obvious what the film was. It just came up from essentially your heart, not your head.
Absolutely.
Right? So I didn't have to spell those letters. Yeah, I could have put those pictures in any order. Yeah, and you would have got it. Okay?
Right.
And those set of pictures could only mean Forrest Gump. It can't mean any other film.
No, it wouldn't have been anything else.
Can't mean Rain Man, can't mean Beautiful Mind. Yeah, but once you guessed Forrest Gump when I told you in English, I could have said a few other words and made you believe that then it actually meant Rain Man.
Right.
Yeah?
Easily.
So literally the Old Testament was written in that language. Yeah? So that every word meant exactly what it said. It can't mean, and those words can't mean any other thing. Yeah, it's absolutely concrete, and there's no allegory, no metaphor, no reinterpretation. But it's been translated into English, where it can be cleverly manipulated using a few other words. Yeah, so that you can believe something is something else.
Right.
And that's how the Bible came about. English is the most manipulative, deceptive language of all. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to read the word of the Most High through this lens of a deceptive language.
Interesting. Do you feel the same way for the New Testament, or what's your opinion of that?
Well, New Testament was written in the deceptive language, Greek.
Right.
Yeah? Greek. When you look at where Paleo Hebrew came from, that area of I guess Israelish, that kind of area, every language west becomes this abstract, imprecise, symbolic language. Yeah. So you get Greek, you get Roman, Latin, and then you get German and English. Okay, they're all these abstract languages. You go east of Jerusalem, you get pictographical languages. Arabic, Chinese, Japanese. Hieroglyphics, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So going going west into Greek, you went from this concrete language to an abstract one, and that's where you can build it. So the New Testament is utter deception. And it was written by Romans or Greco-Romans who were the enemies of the Israelites.
Right.
Who the Most High never ever spoke to. So why would they be given the authority to decide what was in the book and what wasn't?
Right. Yeah, I still find that amazing that Christians that are Bible believers will believe it word for word, when it's the Catholics, who they already see as a deception, are the ones who decided what words would go in.
Right. And the character of Jesus. Okay. Well, it's starting to come out that he's not what he was portrayed to be. As Cesare Borgia. It's beyond doubt now. His story doesn't match up, doesn't make sense.
No.
When you start looking at it, it just doesn't make sense. His story contradicts the Old Testament at every turn. So now you've got these who hair and blue eyes.
Hold on 1 second. 1 second. I'm having your robot again. So
you've got these.
Hold on, Dave. 1 second.
Christians who.
Dave, 1 second. 1 second. Now we can go ahead. Start where you were saying Jesus. It's turning out, or it's coming out that he's not who we thought.
Okay. Yeah. So it's coming out that he's not exactly who everybody thought he was. His face is actually the face of Cesare Borgia, and that can't really be denied now. So he's not the blue-eyed, blonde-haired guy, that everybody thinks he is. And obviously, if he was from the Middle East, then he wouldn't be this Caucasian bloke. So now you've got these breakaway Christians now who believe in this Yeshua, so they're giving him a Hebrew name, or Yahawashai, or whatever Hebrew sounding name they could come up with. And then you got these others who say, well, he's got to be black as well. So, the point is that his story's fake, his lineage is fake, and yet everybody's still hanging on to him as if there's got to be something of it that's true.
Right. And if you dare speak out against him, then they say, "Well, it's just another attack on the Lord Jesus Christ. What do you know?" It's like, well, it's not an attack. It's it's pointing out evidence and things that you should recognize. Like you said, the story just doesn't match up. You can't go around telling people that to love your neighbor and turn the other cheek, and then say, "But deny me, and I'll deny you to the Father." That's not the same person.
No. And I looked at the lineage of him. Okay, so you look at Matthew 1:1. It starts off. Here's a lineage of David, and it goes all the way down. But Joseph didn't contribute any DNA,
right?
So that lineage is of Joseph, not Jesus,
right?
So where's that?
He didn't come from the line of David at all.
He's not the line of Judah or of the seed of David. So that tells you that's not him, in the first place.
Right.
And then they will say, oh, no, actually it's through Mary. Okay, so you look at that and you realize, well, actually the seed doesn't get passed, by the woman. Yeah.
Right.
Even, we know it today that a man has an X and Y chromosome and women have two X's. So, if a man passes his Y and a woman passes one of her X's, then you get a boy. If a woman passes one of her X's and the man passes his X, you get a girl. Yeah.
Yep.
So, the seed, the if you look at the genealogy in Luke, it actually also goes to Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
So that, again, failure there. but then I think in the 1611 Bible you've got 3 genealogy. And she's a seed of David, so that's where it comes from. But again, if you look in the text, it actually tells you that Mary was a Levite. So it just doesn't work. So again, you've got another breakaway sect of Christianity who say, well, no, he wasn't the son of the Most High. So how can you believe any of it?
Right.
That's the point.
Yeah, once you realize that they've had their hand in any of it, then you can't believe any of it. It's kind of a disgrace. The amount of people too who will recognize and say, oh yeah, the Bible's been tainted, the Bible's been changed, but then they go on believing that Jesus is the Savior. And I always point out, to me, if Jesus was at all real, or there was any character that was like him, some of the things that he says, like no man has heard God's voice or seen his face, that contradicts the entire Old Testament. So it's like just that line alone. Or people say you have to pray to Jesus, you have to pray in his name. But there's a clear line in the Bible where he says, here's how you pray. I'll tell you the prayer. And he tells you the Our Father prayer, which doesn't say anything about praying to him. It says to pray to God. So it's just, there's so many contradictions. And that's what bothers me so much, is when people say there's no contradictions in the Bible. It's like, well, you know what? You're talking about words on paper. And you're right. If there's words on paper, then you can configure it any way you want. Now, that's why I think what's interesting is what you're talking about with this Paleo-Hebrew, that possibly there is words on paper that can't be distorted, whereas the words that we have, that we're given, and whether that's through the Greek or whether that's through English, it can be taken any way you want it. Just like there's people who argued on behalf of slaves through the Bible verses, or use those same verses to say that we should have slaves, because you can take any words and distort them however you want.
Right, and that's only in English.
Mm-hmm.
With Paleo-Hebrew, again, I'll give you another example. The word for father, is Abba, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the letter A, which is a picture of an ox head, which is, which was at the time the strongest animal they knew of. So it means strength, power, leadership, first. Yeah. The letter B is a picture, a kind of a floor plan of a tent. It means house, home, family, bloodline. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you put that together, and it means, father means strength of the family, guidance of the family, leadership of the family. Yeah.
Right.
It's not just a label. It's a definition. It's a role.
Right.
It completely defines, what a father is, what he should do, how he should hold himself. It's literally the creation. I don't know if that comes across.
No, it does, totally. I mean, it makes sense, because it's not just a title you're giving somebody, but it's it's a role. It's a job. It's a role. It's got more definition than simply, son's father or son's dad.
The English word father, doesn't mean anything. It's just a sound, And I realized, being a programmer, that English is literally a programming language. It's a programming language for the human mind, because all the words are variables. They're symbols. They're symbolic. They don't mean anything. So in programming, that would be called a variable. So like when you say, in a program, X equals 5. So wherever you see X, it means 5.
Right.
But somewhere in the program, you can change that to X equals 7. And now everywhere that X is, it now means 7.
Right.
So the words can be manipulated just by subtly changing their definition. They can do that over time. They can do it all at once, and literally your reality changes, because we think in words. So by manipulating words, you change people's realities.
Absolutely, yeah. And I've even tried before to debunk that and say I don't think in words. I clearly think in English.
Yes. And you think about it, with the right words said in the right way, a hypnotist can get somebody to eat an onion and think it's an apple.
Mm-hmm.
Just with words.
I've seen it happen. It's very true.
Yeah. And for that person, the reality is that it's an apple. And you cannot convince that person otherwise.
That's scary.
It's literally that powerful.
Right.
People don't realize that words are the most important things here. They have real power. Language has power. And so that's why we were given these languages.
And then in the beginning there was the word, right?
Yes, but it was a Paleo-Hebrew word.
Right, not an English word.
Not an English word. Adam's first job was to name the animals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the word name, which is sham, it's actually doesn't mean to label. It means to define, characterize. Kind of create. Co-create. It wasn't just labeling animals. It was helping to define them.
Interesting.
So yes, that's why I know that the Old Testament. That's one of the reasons I know the Old Testament is real. The other reason is that we're finding actual evidence of the stories, the supernatural stories in the Old Testament. We're finding the actual evidence of them. The Noah's Ark was found back in 1980. Is it 1980? Yeah. The Red Sea crossing was found. There's several other bits of archaeological evidence point to the Red Sea crossing. They found, along the Exodus, were found. Sodom and Gomorrah was found. So, this book is a book of history, a literal book of history, as well as a book of law.
Interesting. So you do believe then that it is you would describe it as the Word of God?
Yes, I would, because if you think about it, this is.
And are you talking the first 5 books, or you're talking all the way through, whatever I think the last book is, Malachi or something?
I think that, and there are other books that we don't know of, and
mm-hmm.
The Apocryphal entry. Apart from the rest of Esther, think about it. Why would there be an apocryphal book, which is the rest of a book that's already in the canon? So when you look at the rest of Esther, it actually tells you who some of the characters actually were and what their characters were like. It gives you some background to let you know who's actually who right now in these last days.
Is a computer chip.
It's very, very powerful, and I found out so much about what's going on today, and as I said, you've got to realize that this book has been with humanity for the whole of recorded history. One book. Yeah, and I believe it can't be destroyed. It can't, the word of the Most High cannot be destroyed. So all they can do is mess around with it and hope that people don't look too far into it, just like NASA.
So that would be my question. There is that, and I believe it's in the Old Testament that it says, or maybe it is New Testament, where it says God's word will be preserved. But I've always thought of it and said, I can go grab the entire text of the Old Testament and copy and paste it into a new PDF and change whatever I want from it, and then submit it or copyright it as a new text. So I've always kind of had a problem with saying, it can be changed, it can be corrupted, and kind of like we said about the Old Testament of, once you realize it can be changed, that's why I have a hard time buying into accepting it as God's unchanging word, because there's different versions, there's different, obviously. Like we said, it's been translated, which means it could have been mistranslated. So I guess my question to you, before I could ever, go to that belief, would be, how are you sure that it can be preserved in such a way that you could call it God's word?
Well, it has happened exactly as the way you said it, but I think there's always been clues left, and one of them for me was finding out that King James was a Hebrew Israelite. He was a black man. He was a black Hebrew Israelite, and in the foreword of the book, he's saying, "I'm having this translated as faithfully as possible." From the Hebrew and the Greek, because there are people, he meant the Roman Catholic Church, who don't want us to have the word of the Most High. So he had it translated as faithfully as possible, but there were spies amongst the translators, and they mistranslated things and misapplied things. But there was enough. There's enough information out there. To make sure that you don't lose the word, and every time they tried destroying anything, all the originals of things, that it kept popping up. So like they no doubt destroyed every copy of the Book of Enoch they could find, but then it reappears in 1948. It just and it's quite amazing that the first words of the Book of Enoch were, "This book is not for now; it is for the people in the last days." So it disappears for 2,000 years or so and reappears in 1948 just when it's needed.
You got me thinking so many things now with these questions. So. You think that the what do you call it, the Dead Sea Scrolls, you think those are legit? They were found in 47 in a cave, and that they are proof that the Bible hasn't changed?
Yes, I do, because I think they found a complete book of Isaiah, and also the Book of Enoch matched up with the Ethiopic version. So yes, I believe it was. I think there were other books in that cave, but
fragments.
What surprised? Yeah, what surprised the Book of Enoch? Managed to make it all the way through.
Yeah, I guess for me, like I said, of selling books, and as I have, I recognize that books cannot be dated. That if there's anything that you can fake, it's text, because all you need to do is know writing style, and you need to know the utensil that was used, and you need to know the paper, and besides that, there is no other way of testing the book. So if somebody wanted to take Enoch today and go and forge an old document and call it a fragment, you could bake this this papyrus. You could use the utensil that was used 1,000 years ago. You could make a forgery. And again, I'm not saying that that's the case, but I'm saying when that's available, when that's an option. And again, when I see, because I look at the belief in, and I guess you and I have a different opinion of the Old Testament, because I think that the Old Testament, that I struggle with that God. I really struggle in seeing a worshipable character in the Old Testament God. And so I guess
can you explain why?
Sure. Yeah. And I think we want to get into this because, well, I will explain that in one second, but I wanted to say that many people believe that way, but then they say Jesus came and changed the way things are done, and he got rid of the old law and so the religion changed. So I understand that perspective, but I guess I struggle with yours a little bit in the fact that I'm guessing if you think that the New Testament is a corrupted document or is fake, then that must mean that you still think that we're living in this Old Testament kind of mentality, or at least the design of the Old Testament God. So in my opinion, when you talk about why I think that character is not worshipable, the Old Testament kind of...
Hi everyone, it's Chris Gio here, founder of Truth Frequency Radio. It is with the deepest sorrow that I have to inform everyone of the passing of our shaman, teacher, healer, and fellow TFR host, William Whitecrow. William has been our guide throughout this journey, and him and Sue became like the parents we never had. We both learned so much from him, and he was on countless radio shows with us over the last 10 years, even hosting his own program, Quantum Quest. Cherie and I also share a very sacred bond with William, as he performed the Native American wedding ceremony for us on December 21st, 2012, which binded us together. As William was the sole provider, we would like to help out the family by covering the funeral expenses. Please visit tfrlive.com/whitecrow and you will be redirected to the GoFundMe page. Or you can click on the banner on our front page. Thank you so much for your love and support.
First Lady hospitalized, Middle East clashes. I'm Ann Cates. First Lady Melania Trump is recovering at a Washington area hospital after undergoing surgery for a benign kidney condition. Medical correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
She's going to be in the hospital for a few days now. So, they're expecting a recovery period that's not insignificant. This obviously is not an outpatient procedure. That also gives you some idea of how significant this procedure likely was, more significant as opposed to something that's just very simple where someone goes home the same day.
The U.S. has formally opened its new embassy in Jerusalem. Correspondent Pamela Brown.
President Trump sending a video message as well as a delegation led by his daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner to commemorate the occasion. During the ceremony, violent protests continued in Gaza, leaving dozens of Palestinians dead and another 2,000 injured, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health.
Lava cracks continue to open up on Hawaii's Big Island, raising concerns that residents should be evacuated before escape routes are cut off amid continued warnings of the possibility of a second explosive blast.
3 new fissures opened up over the weekend and increased activity after a few days of calm. Volcanologist Janet Babb says a major concern is Halemaumau crater on Kilauea's top. Scientists no longer have a visual on the lava lake. It's dropped too much to see it, but rocks continue to fall into the crater, possibly causing a cap to build up, which would then build up pressure.
And then if it's pressurized enough to blast through that plug, that's the concern.
That blast could send boulders and rocks a half to 1 mile or more away. If there is no cap building, the steam would continue to be released, so no explosion. The problem is, it's unclear exactly what's going on down there. I'm Jim Roop.
Wall Street advanced today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up 68 points. The S&P 500 gained 2. The NASDAQ up 8. I'm Ann Cates.
Into the truth frequency. Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Old Testament kind of mentality, or at least the design of the Old Testament God. So in my opinion, when you talk about why I think that character is not worshipable, is because I see a tyrant basically who has created people and put us here, and then because of certain mistakes along the way, I guess You can call it corruption by Satan, or you can say it's a fall of man at the beginning. Whatever might be the explanation for that, then people are kind of punished, or they're born in sin, they're born in darkness, as they're saying. I certainly don't think that any baby, I've held babies before, I have a son. I don't think that my son was born in sin. I don't think that he was evil from the get-go. I think, those things are kind of put on him. But when I look at the Old Testament God, I just see somebody who was not, for instance, if you're going to want people to worship you, the best way is to show yourself as worshipable, not to kill their firstborn, not to destroy other.
Kill all the men, kill all the women, kill the children, kill all the animals.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm saying that doesn't seem like the best way to be, to elevate yourself to a worshipable status. For me, I would hope that the God. So, for instance, like if a man beats his wife and tells her to be home every day at 5 o'clock when he gets home from work, if she's there every day at 5 o'clock when he gets home from work, it doesn't mean that she loves him, and it doesn't mean that he loves her. It means that there is a fear relationship in which she fears not being home at 5, and one where he fears that she's going to leave him or go off with another man, so he wants her home at 5. And that relationship is a very broken relationship that will never end well, will never end in love. And that's the way that Bible God portrays himself, in the fact that if you demand worship and you demand adherence to your rules, or else you will be punished, and so will your children. Well, now you've got a fear-based relationship to where this God is afraid of people worshiping other gods. Don't go worship other gods. I'm the only God. Don't go worship Baal. And then you've created a fear-based relationship. To me, that's not the idea of a loving relationship. I don't think there's any kind of, I don't know. There's no worshipable character. There's no worshipable traits there to me. I would rather a God that says, the God that I believe in is the creator God who has given us everything, and everything that's corrupt, I blame on men. So if I believe in the Old Testament God, I tend to think that, well, there's a lot of corruption by men, but possibly they learned it from God.
Right. Well, what that says is that you've been looking at the Old Testament through Christian goggles.
And that may be true. That's absolutely true, probably.
Right. And if you read the book, just with an open heart and realizing who some of the characters are going on. I mean, if you've seen the film Alien, haven't you?
Yep.
Yeah. So if you knew there was a whole village of those things, next door to yours, yeah,
right,
would you hesitate to kill every male, every female, every egg?
No, I don't think that. Yeah, you would want to get rid of them.
Right. Yeah. Even the little baby aliens. Yeah. Because you know what's going to happen.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Right. So that's exactly what the story, how the story transpired. Yeah. That's who were being killed when the Most High said, kill all the men, all the women, because they weren't human. And, if you read the story, it's absolutely blatantly obvious. But it's not obvious if you don't factor in the Book of Enoch, because they took that out for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they took that book out because it told too much of the story, and it also leads you to know who those characters, who the descendants of those creatures, who they are today.
So I'm okay. So this is where I'm getting confused. So I mean, with the Book of Enoch, do you believe that the winds are stored in storehouses in the sky?
I believe that he's putting it in terms that he can understand.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't know what the sky really how the sky really works, how the firmament works.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, neither do I. I simply and I've tried to read Enoch, and I think there's some interesting things in it, but I think also it looks to be a book written by somebody who was, making a lot of stuff up. It doesn't seem like there's a lot to hold on to. It talks about the moon and says that the moon comes and goes, but follows its own path, and it doesn't. So he's kind of saying that the moon doesn't have a orbit, but there's a an actual path that it takes. It's a 19-year cycle or whatever it is. So to just say, it sounds like somebody who tried to watch it, tried to mark its path, and just came to the conclusion that it doesn't have one, and said, the sun goes by these paths, but the moon just kind of comes and goes on its own journey, which I don't think is necessarily true. So I don't know. I struggle with when you find something in these texts that is not true. That's where I struggle to say it's the word of God, because you would think everything would be true.
But it's not saying that. It's not saying that the Earth is going around the sun, and
no. That'd be crazy. No.
You see, so
no, I totally believe that. I mean, that's totally acceptable. I'm saying that
this point, though,
the Old Testament is exactly what you would expect from people who looked at the world observationally, which is what we should do today. I mean, that's where the truth is. The truth is certainly not in what Neil deGrasse spews at some conference,
Right, but the way I see it is that, okay, a while back, I didn't know what the problem was with, eating pork. Yeah, not that I was eating pork at the time, but I quite liked bacon sandwiches back in the day.
Those would be, I remember those.
Right. So, but I couldn't see the problem with eating pork. What's wrong with pigs?
Right.
But then after doing research on health, I realized that there's no way we should be putting that meat in our mouth.
No.
Because the way what pigs are designed for. Yeah. They're not designed to waste compactors, basically. They're designed to keep the earth, clean.
Right.
So all the waste gets stored in the pig,
Right.
So this is what I'm trying to say, that there is stuff that I didn't understand. I couldn't see the point of when the Most High said, no, don't do that. Yeah. But now that I've got a little bit more knowledge, I can see some of them.
I see some of them, but I see some other. I mean, for instance, in the Book of Enoch, there's a lot of talk of the angels that came down and impregnated women. Correct. Mm-hmm. So, did the angels have human anatomy? Or did they have penises?
All through the Bible, it tells you that they take on human form.
Okay, got you. So the angels came down, took on human. They changed into humans. Explain that. I see that part. For me, if I can't see something happening in reality that I've ever seen, I have a real hard time venturing into the belief land it's the same to me as believing in the planet Saturn that I can go to and go around. If I have to believe that angels can come down, change into humans with penises, where do they go into human bodies that are already living? That kind of takes away the idea of free will in my mind. I don't think no demon can come into my body simply because I don't believe in demons. But I mean, I guess I just struggle with what did happen there that the angels came down.
Well, demons are different, but okay. But yeah, it says multiple times that the angels take on physical form.
Mm-hmm.
Celestial beings, but they can take on physical form. Some of them have been given. Well, all of them have got specialized jobs. For want of a better word. Yeah.
Right. Each name goes to a different. They're in charge of something different.
Yeah. So you've got Watcher class angels that were meant to to watch to. Did you see the film City of Angels, for instance?
With Tom Hanks?
No, Nicolas Cage.
Don't know
as an angel.
I think maybe I did see it.
Yeah, but so these angels were watching as celestial beings that we couldn't see, but when they wanted to, they could be seen, and they were physical. They were physical, human-like beings. I'm saying that there's a lot of films out there that tell you what the real story is, in coded form. But they tell you what's actually going on. So yes, they could take human form. They could do these things. And as I said, we don't live in a natural world. We live in a supernatural world.
And I would agree with you there. But I like to, and I guess this comes down to obviously preference, because I like to believe in a world where things are not allowed by the creator of this world that would be something as catastrophic as that, as angels who are supposed to be a higher being, or at least more in line with the understanding of God's nature and our purpose than we are, coming down, defiling humanity, creating a mess, and then really just letting that mess play out is not a worshipable, trait. For me, I believe. Go ahead.
Angels who also have free will.
Right. So the angels who, so you said that each angel's in charge of something else. So they're in charge of those things, but they're given free will. So the corruption that they cause.
They're given free will.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at the Book of Enoch, it says that there's an angel Raguel who's there to make sure that the stars, which are also angels, angelic beings, the stars chart their regular course, and if they don't, they get punished.
Right. So I'm saying, to believe that,
so
what would lead you to
free
believe?
will?
Right, but what would lead you to believe? Well, you mean the angels have free will or the stars?
Well, the angels are stars.
And so
that's what these books say.
Right, but they've maintained their regular orbits for quite a while. So if that's free will, that's pretty strange of them to decide to stay there. Wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
So and for me, I just and I would love to hear more, because I think that I've tried before. In fact, I admit I've admitted many times that I wanted the Bible to be true. I wanted there to be something that we could hold on to as truth, and it makes life easier to understand. But when I try, when I literally try, and every time I do, I come to a point where there's some story or there's some portion. And granted, the one thing I know that I have not done, and so I fully admit that, is look into the Paleo-Hebrew. So that's something I will definitely look at, because you're right. It could be simply because I'm looking through Christianity's goggles or Catholicism's goggles, which I grew up with, or I'm looking at it in even the English text, in which case, if they were trying to deceive me and lead me to believe that the book was complete nonsense, well, that's the way they would do it. So as I said, I'm open to all things. I would never turn away and say, nope, the Bible cannot be true, it's garbage, because there's so many ways, like the AE map when I saw it and told my wife she was crazy. There is, I know for a fact, there's ways to block my ability to see truth.
Okay, I'll give you an example of how they used language to hide stuff. Okay. The Hebrew this modern Hebrew isn't Hebrew. It's Yiddish. Okay, it's a Yiddish with Aramaic characters. It's not a real language. It was designed literally to hide truth. Okay, so if you know some of the rules of Paleo-Hebrew is a dead language, so you can't. There's nobody speaking it, and a lot of the information has been lost. But the rules are quite well known. Okay, so if you know some of the rules, you can look at the fake Hebrew and figure out how, where the deception is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's if you look at the Old Testament, the word devil doesn't appear.
Right.
Doesn't appear once.
Hold on. Let me stop one more time again, because you started roboting.
Okay.
Could be my recorder. Let's see. Stopped. Devil.
Yeah. So in the Old Testament, there is no word devil.
Right.
There is the word devils with an S appears 4 times. So if you look at Hebrew, the fake Hebrew word, it's the word Sayer. S-A-Iyr, okay? And when you look it up, it tells you that it means red, shaggy, hairy, demon-possessed goat, satyr, which is half man, half goat, and, kind of words like that. And with Paleo-Hebrew, you don't just cherry pick the word, the meaning you want. You take all the meanings, just like with you take all the meanings together and you get the meaning of the word. Okay. So that would be, if you were just looking at the fake Hebrew, that would be it. That would be the full extent of that word. But there's also a word in the fake Hebrew, seer, S-E-Iyr. But if you know that in Paleo-Hebrew there is no E, it would actually be an A. So you realize that they're exactly the same word. So when you put the meanings of seer in with Seir, well, you get the Mount Seir, where Esau went to live. You get red, hairy, and you get a couple of other words, but it basically tells you that the devils are the children of Esau. Now that's information that they wanted hidden. And so that's how they've been not able to hide information in using this fake Hebrew.
Interesting. Do you have other examples like that? That was interesting. But other word changes that make that kind of drastic difference?
I can't think of any offhand because lots of different words, and
I'm sure
there's different ways that things have been hidden, and I just remember that one because it's very easy to pull apart.
Were you able to find a Bible written in Paleo-Hebrew, the Old Testament?
No, I haven't been able to find one written. There's there are fragments. There are places like in America, for instance. There was a 4,000-year-old wall in the Cherokee Nation, which was covered in Paleo-Hebrew. Literally had the Lord's Prayer, and I think part of it was called the Back Creek Stone, and the words "Hear, O Israel." And I think it was carried on, the Lord, the Most High is one. It was that line. The Back Creek Stone stood in a museum for years and years, and people thought it was just, some esoteric, Native American language, until a Hebrew scholar came along and realized it was upside down, and it was actually Paleo-Hebrew.
Interesting.
So it also tells you that the Hebrews were the Aboriginal Americans. Not the Native Americans, right, but the Aboriginal ones. They're very different peoples.
Do they call those the Ashkenazic or whatever? I thought they're the.
I didn't. Again, you started to get robotic there, but did you say Ashkenazi?
Yes.
Right. No. No, there were the Aboriginal Americans who were the original copper-colored, people of that land, and also there were these Chinese Mongols who inhabited the northwest of that land. So I think there was not much in the way of mixing, and literally when the Europeans took over, they basically reclassified the Aboriginal Americans as Negroes and Coloreds and what have you, and literally gave the reservations to the Chinese Mongols and Europeans who wanted to pay $5 to become Indian.
Wow. Have you looked much into the Kabbalah? I mean, because what you're describing, I've done a little bit of research into the Kabbalah. Of course, when I see stuff that starts talking about magic or use of angelic names or to gain special powers or cast magic or I don't think that that's a safe path. I'm not saying that it does exist or doesn't exist. I just simply choose not to. I believe if anybody's going to be punished, it would be people that are using that. But maybe you feel differently. But I mean, the Kabbalah and the whole idea that I've read about that is is talking about those 22 letters of Hebrew language and the 10 cardinal numbers, and saying that there is a tradition going back to the beginning of time where you can use those words and basically there's different magically oriented interpretations which explain to people how you can imagine or repeat the divine process of creation through the manipulation of those letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So that's Paleo Hebrew, right?
Yes, but that's Jewish magic, okay? Right. And yes, if you know the language of creation, obviously you can manipulate that. And you might have heard of Enochian magic.
Mm-hmm.
Have you? Well, you might be surprised to know that there were actually two Enochs. Yeah, there was the Enoch of the Book of Enoch, and there was the Enoch son of Cain.
Yep.
Yeah, first son of Cain.
Yeah.
So the Enochian magic basically is of the wicked line of Cain, and not Enoch as from the Book of Enoch. So you're looking at magic that was taught by fallen angels and the lineage of Cain.
Correct.
So I don't really get into the Kabbalah or anything. I don't really want to know, and
I mean, you're in the same.
I says not to get involved.
Right, we're in the same boat as far as that goes.
Sorry?
I said we're in the same boat as far as that goes. I also I don't claim it doesn't exist, because if it does, I simply know not to use that for my gain. Certainly not, and so I don't care to learn it because you might accidentally use it. I don't know.
Just one of the technologies the fallen angels taught us was money. Well, you look in the Book of Enoch, it tells you that they gave us money.
And I think you and I would agree that if you look at humans and what we have discovered, invented, that clearly, at least in my mind, it's from another origin. That humans would not have come up with the method of transporting our voice and picture data and video footage across the world in a millisecond. That is otherworldly. That humans would not have recognized some of these things that have been invented when they did. I mean, just look at the differences in what came along since we had a steam engine and no electricity 100 years ago. I mean, and look at today.
Yeah, and I think it was Rob Skiba who made the connection there that the fallen angels were imprisoned for 70 generations, and he worked it out to have elapsed somewhere around like 1900, which coincides with the explosion from horse and cart to space shuttles.
Very interesting. Yep. Yeah, that's interesting, because I've also heard a lot of people talking, and I tried to talk to somebody on the radio show actually about it. Somebody who was talking about the 1,000 years that the devil would be restrained had just come to the end recently. And I thought that, and I don't mean recently within like a year or two, I mean, like 100 years. But I thought that was very interesting, because it does seem like, again, around middle of this last century, 1950 or so, that things drastically changed, and too fast, really, for any kind of explanation that I've ever seen. When you just look into the idea of information theory, and you start to, just try to ask anybody to explain to you how I can take a video with my phone and send that video anywhere I want. People try to.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
This is iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio makes you want to move. When you have a great melody, a song could last forever.
Instantly connected.
I love it when the beat goes.
Did you know you can listen to Truth Frequency Radio on iHeartRadio? Just download the app to your smart car, smartphone, or smart TV and get the best of TFR wherever you are.
iHeartRadio.
I'll see you there.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
I've ever seen when you just look into the idea of information theory and you start to, just try to ask anybody to explain to you how I can take a video with my phone and send that video anywhere I want. When people try to explain it, they simply cannot. They cannot. They may think they know, oh well, there's bits are going here, and yeah, well what it is it's a breaking down of that video into billions of what they call bits, and then it traveling through the speed of light, basically through fiber optic cables, and then readjoining each other back at the other side. And it's just crazy that is something people think was just discovered, just like, we discovered we can send anything through, the whole idea of Claude Shannon. But I do think a lot of this stuff could be possibly happened through this kind of magic or from an otherworldly being. And like I said, when I say demons don't exist, that's my personal belief, because I believe that if you don't believe they exist, they cannot affect you. So when I say demons do not exist, I mean they do not exist for me. And I've told people before, if I sat in a room and painted a pentagram around me and lit candles and said the Bible backwards, I also don't deny that they may show up.
Right. Well, I think they'll exist. View on them, because for instance, if you started drinking lots of alcohol, you literally disconnect the part of you that's controlling this physical body of yours.
Right.
Yeah. You loosen that connection. If you ever saw the film Get Out, you're in the sunken place.
Mm-hmm. You're opening doors.
Or you be alcoholic, then you are in a sunken place, and you become a passenger in your own body, and something else is in control.
Mm-hmm. Wait 1 second, Dave.
Now,
just hold up 1 second, because you're roboting again. Let this thing catch up, or whatever's going on. Okay, yeah, I think we lost you back. You were saying that.
Sure, it's the alcohol kind of disconnects you, and sort of distances you from the control of your body. So the more alcohol you consume, the greater in you, between you and your body, and take over. And I've seen this new generation of drugs, including this flakka, which
what's that?
I saw this one. It's a new type of drug. It's flakka.
Never heard of it.
I think
I'm way out of touch.
There's also, you just put that into YouTube, and you'll see some very weird stuff.
You said it's FF, like flakka, FLKAKA?
FLAKKA or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see people with superhuman strength, running naked through the street, screaming.
Oh, Lord.
And throwing themselves through car windows, and then getting up and running off. The way he was standing standing on his feet, but his back was arched backwards, and the top half of it, and throwing themselves through car windows, and then getting up and running off. The way he was standing on his feet, but his back was arched backwards, and the top half of his torso was kind of bent forwards, and he was walking like that.
Wow.
And it was in a way that no human could actually walk like that. I tried emulating what he was doing. I couldn't do it. And it's like something had come into this body and didn't really remember how to walk properly, so he figured out his own way of walking. It was bizarre. And again, when you see some of these cases where they suddenly have superhuman strength, it's like they can't control their body properly, and they'll get run over by cars and jump up and throw themselves through a window, and yes, it's incredible, and that tells me that demon possession is real, and our habits that have been given to us, through certain drugs and through legalized drugs, literally open the door for these things.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, we're in a supernatural world, not a natural one, and the level of unbelief in this world comes from this indoctrination into this idea that we live in a normal natural reductionist type world.
where it's all materiality and that everything. Yeah, I mean, clearly to me, it's like when they ask, what's outside the earth, it's like, well, this is all there is. We just exist, That's why it's supernatural to me, is that it's unexplainable. But they try and explain everything, and they think because you can explain something that means that I guess it has no origin or has no maker. Like I can break down the chair I'm sitting in now. I can break it down to its tiniest little bits. That doesn't mean that I can then say, well, it's got a natural reason for being here and it doesn't have a creator. No, it doesn't mean anything. Clearly, things in the order and the laws of nature and the universe are obviously, prescribed by a mind far greater than we understand. And the whole goal of science is to erase that thought. And to, I say sometimes that they talk about how we have no significance, or we're not very significant. We're just this small piece of dust. But them saying that is actually making them significant. By Neil deGrasse saying that we're all stardust and that we, we're insignificant in the grand scheme of things. He's saying that to make himself significant. That's the goal there.
Yeah. I mean, I see us or our relationship to the Most High in the same way as Charles Dickens to Oliver Twist. Yeah. Charles Dickens will imagine a setting. So he'll imagine old London town, and and then sort of dress the sets and
place the
create sort
there.
of background characters, create the main characters and let them have free will and basically write down what they do. Yeah. So you imagine that on with an infinite mind.
Right.
And this is where we are, when you look at this world, there is no physical matter. The harder you try and find it, the less you find. Yeah. So this is a universe of mind stuff, where we are just points of awareness in that mind stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And science should realize that by now, because they keep seeing that in all their investigations. They find out the more you look, the more you find out that you can't see it. The smaller and smaller you get, there's always smaller. It's not meant for you to find.
And you can imagine, and again, this is my limited mind thinking. You can imagine something becoming aware of itself. Yeah, this just a point of awareness becoming aware of itself, and just being the one, the only thing, and
that's kind of how I would describe
to create something else.
Yeah, that's kind of how I would. That's how I would describe, the Creator, the God. That's why, my opinion as of now is not that that the Bible could be the Word of God, because then I have to envision something outside of this. Whereas I almost describe it as, like you said, it's either a self-authorship, kind of like it's a. Because the way I look at it, the one true thing in everything is the law of free will. That I have free will to press any button on my keyboard right now, and you have free will to do anything you can do. And I think that if God then interjected in any of our lives in a way that affected free will, meaning I can pray for strength, I can pray for courage if I'm going to go to a job interview, whatever. I can pray for those things because they're not affecting anybody's free will. But to think that God impacts the people on the earth, I struggle with that. And that's where, when we say God killed this group, or that he helped these people cross the Red Sea, or that's where I struggle a little bit and say, well, I don't think that God can affect. I think it makes more sense to me that everything on earth happens because of the decisions of man. That there is no, and God is kind of everything. That it is. Every decision, every person, you and me talking, are both a piece of God that is learning, is growing, is experiencing, is witnessing, and we get it's kind of a privilege. It is a privilege to be created and be given this gift of life, in that you and I are able to interact and be a part of this growing process. And for me personally, I think that some people are rewarded at the end of this life, and those people that are rewarded because they appreciated life, and they pushed for the good, the will of God, which is growth and happiness and joy and all the things that we can see, nurturing, that have to be there, or else the world wouldn't exist. If there was no nurturing mothers, then none of us would exist. So that tells me that nurturing is part of God. It's important in what we need to do, just like love, just like, whereas darkness and hate and despair and destruction, if God was about those things, there would be nothing here. If God cared about destroying everything, well, then everything would be destroyed. So obviously living in life and liberty, those things are what is doing God's will. And I think those people who contribute to that will be rewarded with the gift of life again. And I don't know if that's, I don't think it's back here. I think it's in another plane of existence. Just like I said, the earth is all there is. Well, there's something else that I wouldn't even be able to recognize because it may be somewhere else, or it could be right here. I mean, if you've got the infinite mind of God, you can create that wherever you want. So I just think that that's how it kind of works. And the people who have chosen to adhere to the darkness, that care about selfishness and destroying life and destroying love and destroying liberty, those people who care more about the darkness will be rewarded with exactly what they loved, which is non-life, which is destruction, despair. They will get rewarded with nothing else. They'll get what they wanted. They hated life, so they get the absence of life, which is nothing. So that's kind of how I picture it. And I think that that I would like to believe that there's a book that was of divine origin, but I think that all books are of divine origin. Meaning, if you wrote a book right now, you are inspired by God, because I just said that you're part of God. Just like if I wrote a book now, well, I'm inspired by God. But I just don't believe that we can then pass those books out and say, this is the word of God, because we recognize that we're human. And you may have misheard God. You may have wrote something that came from yourself and not so much the Creator. So I think that's what I look at the Bible as, is a group of men who tried to write about God, and I'm not positive that they necessarily knew anything more or less about the Creator than I did, and therefore I really have a hard time calling it the Word of God,
Yeah, but what you got to remember about me is that I've been an atheist for 40 years.
Right.
I mean, seriously.
That's hard to believe, because I think David Weiss is really the only other one that I've heard that would say that was that long an atheist. And was it flat Earth that brought you back, or was it something before that?
It was coming back by degrees, because as I said, it was like I was fully immersed into the world of man. Yeah, I was right in the matrix. I had the big house, I had the flash Ferrari outside, I had a room full of toys, yeah, and believed it all. But after I'm believing that this world of man is a lie, is an illusion, and one by one it broke down every single illusion that I was under, until I was left with the word of the man. Now I see it as that we're in a bubble of 3D time and space, or 3D space and time, and outside of this, well, there is no outside, because that would imply space and time.
Right.
Yeah, but space and time only exists here. But if you follow the concept, outside of this is a different realm where there is no space or time. And essentially this is a test. If you know that you have an eternal soul, as we realize that there is a part of us that isn't our body. If that soul is an eternal one, the important part. So I imagine this is a test to weed out the bad souls, because you don't really want psychopaths in eternity, do you?
I totally agree. That's my exact belief. Yeah, I think that it is a test. And I do you believe in reincarnation? As far as in this?
No, I don't.
Okay. I mean, I think that
I don't.
I think because the reason I do is I just think that some people are going to be free of the deception, and people are going to understand and learn and grow in this realm. And so I think those people, like I said before, move on. And I think that some people are wicked and evil and kill and maim and actually hate life, and those people are erased. But I think there's some people that maybe because of their circumstances, maybe they were born in a religious home and they never were able to break free of the deception. I think sometimes those people may return. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there is reincarnation. The way I see this is, okay, my son used to play a video game, and it was a Star Wars video game, and you start off as a Padawan learner with your little lightsaber, and you're given, you're going along, you're given decisions to make, and depending on which decisions you make, you either become a Jedi or a Dark Lord. Yeah, and that's kind of where we are. And one of the things that I used to see my son do when he played these games is that the first part of the game is defining your character. So you choose how much bravery, how much skill, how many other attributes they've got, and then you play them. And if they play really well, you end up playing those, very often. But if they don't play quite so well, you don't play them very often because they don't quite play too well.
Right, they don't have the right attributes.
So eventually you end up deleting them to make space for the good ones. So that's what I see. This test as being. It's you either play well or you get deleted. That's the way I see it anyway. And again, if you read the Old Testament with any understanding, you find that the Bible is only interested in the last 7,000 years of Earth's history.
Right.
There's much more of Earth's history, but there's a clue in the first line of Genesis that tells you that the Most High basically destroyed everything of the previous incarnation.
That the world was without form?
Yes, but again, you look at the Paleo-Hebrew. Oh, yeah. It says, but the world, but the earth had become ruinous and empty. So it wasn't that the Most High created the heaven and the earth, and it was without form and void. It said, but it had become ruinous and empty. Yeah, and the other place that those two words are used, ruinous and empty, is in Jeremiah, and what cities,
right? Atlantis, and Lemuria.
We look around the world today. There, but that civilization was.
Stop and record again. Might be just because we're getting.
Okay. It's just saying that there was. You can't hear me.
Barely. You keep cutting in and out. Just wait 1 second. Let's go. Hopefully. Okay, we can hear you now. We'll probably be closing off here pretty quick. So just go ahead, finish what you were saying there.
Yeah. It's gone.
Gone now, huh? Isn't it? You were.
Oh yeah. Pyramid culture.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, I can still hear you. You were kind of struggling a little bit, but you were doing okay.
Oh, okay.
You said that the Bible. You were talking about the. We heard you say.
Okay. Yeah. It just means that that whole culture was utterly destroyed, so they're not relevant today.
Do you think that was destroyed by the flood?
No, this was before the flood.
Okay. Yeah. So, Dave, I do want to talk to you again. I thought this is great. I want to do some research into the Paleo-Hebrew a little bit and understand that a little clearer. And then also just look into the idea of kind of the direction that you're going with the – I don't think I've heard anybody else come with the Old Testament being real and the New Testament being the deception. So I think that's an interesting take. And I want to thank you for coming on and talking with me. And everyone, you can find him at allegedlydave.com and also on YouTube at dmurphy25. And I look forward to meeting you, Dave, in November. If anybody wants to come out and say hello, both Dave and I will be at the Flat Earth International Conference or Convention. I believe the website is FE 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Dave? Do you know the website name?
It's either FE 2018 or FEIC 2018. I can't remember.
I'm the same way. It's one of those two. So try those both, either FE 2018 or FEIC 2018.com. And that is in November. And I know both of us will be there. It'll be my first time meeting Dave. And your son will be there as well, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Sorry the video was not that great at the end or even throughout. Dave using a satellite dish antenna on his van and my lightning fast 20 megabytes per second DSL connection combined for some quality audio for sure. So we do both apologize for that. I really enjoyed the conversation. And that ended about 3 p.m. today. And from 3 p.m. until the show began tonight, I was really deeply enthralled by some very interesting research I was doing on some of this Paleo-Hebrew. So I don't want to jump the gun on revealing some of that, but look forward to some of that research coming out. It is interesting, no doubt. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Jeranism@yahoo.com. If you'd like to hear more with Dave, let me know. Or something else you'd like to hear, also let me know that, or any suggestions. And lastly, the worst part of this all, if you have the means to help and support me, as much as I hate to ask, if you appreciate the work that I'm doing, if you think that I should do this full time, well, you can help. I can't do it without your support. Believe me, I wish I could do this full time. I really do. Providing a unique point of view, reporting back my research, and kind of helping each other, basically like a team, and never asking you for a penny. That would be absolutely ideal. And that's the God honest truth. I would do this all for free if I could, but it isn't reality, so I'm asking. So if you can't support monetarily, please share my videos. Send them to your social media friends and family. And if you can support, you can go to patreon.com/Jeranism, or you can go to paypal.me/Jeran, and all support is greatly appreciated. So again, thank you to everyone for listening. Hopefully that wasn't a boring show. I enjoyed the conversation personally. I think Dave is great, and I love to hear his research and what he's listening to or what he's looking at currently. And if you do go to his channel, you'll find all kinds of great videos. Again, that's D Murphy 25. And then if you want to check out his son's channel is Red Flag Media. So again, I appreciate everybody for listening in and welcoming us back into your homes. We love to be here with you and hopefully are here every single week. We try to be. Last week we weren't able to be here again, as we had some confusion with the internet. We're trying to get Comcast in here so I can get faster internet and we stop having all these audio issues, but it didn't work. So we're still on our DSL internet right now with AT&T. So hopefully by next week, my hope would be that we aren't any longer with AT&T, but you never know. We'll see. Comcast has got to run some lines or something. Whatever they do, they've got to do it. I don't know. So again, email me if you have any questions or comments. The easiest way to get a hold of me is to be a patron. They have a direct email line to me, and also a direct SpeakPipe line to me. So hopefully you head over there and want to support that way. As always, check out my videos at Jeranism. That is the YouTube name. You can also go to jeranism.com. I've been working on the site behind the scenes a little bit. Still, you're going to see the old one up for now. Hopefully the new one will be released soon. Trying to make it faster, more accessible, easier, kind of having all the content in one spot and my updates and everything. So constantly trying to get better with the time that I have, and appreciate everyone so much. Again, if you were at one of the meetups these past 2 weekends, thank you so much for coming by and saying hi. Really feels good to get so many people that come up to you and just thank you for everything you've done. And I had people come up to me and cry to thank me for changing their life. That's a pretty amazing feeling when all I'm doing is just trying to speak the truth, being that unique voice, not afraid to say things that others are. So till next time, guys, it's been fun. Peace.
Hi, everyone. It's Chris Geo here, founder of Truth Frequency.